Casey, here we are again. My guy, it's another year of Game and Went. 2023 is nearly over at the time of this recording. And my dude, what a year it has been.
What a year indeed. I don't think anyone listening to this that's even vaguely familiar with video games needs us to reconfirm what an insanely batshit year it has been for game releases. I think probably one of the craziest since the mid-2000s. Truly an insane year of releases.
There have been a lot of podcasts talking about when was the last time we saw this density of high-quality games on both the AAA and the indie side of things. And I can say this is the fourth year recording the podcast, our spreadsheet's never been, I would say, even half this long. It's a real scroll wheel around this one.
That is true. And if I may, I want to also just shout out all the people that got laid off, because that was brutal. And it is one of the best years in games in a long time, but also the worst year for people getting fired since someone mentioned a year. I think it was 2009 or something, or I could be completely making that year up. But it's been a while since there's been this level of destruction for video game jobs. And if we want to keep having years like this, these studios have to figure it out. That's not going to work if 7,000 people get laid off every year. So here's hoping those people land on their feet and we can have years like this moving forward. But, not to make it dour, but it needs to be kind of said. It was also a terrible year for a lot of the employees. So shout out to them. But on to the games. Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, it's, neither you or I really have any insider intel into what working in the industry is like, but there's a one-to-one correlation between, challenges in the economy as well as challenges in the development workplace. And I think anybody can agree that games now are just so high budget. They have to be so profitable to make any revenue whatsoever. And if they're not, then that has incredibly adverse effects on the studios. I mean, Bungie is right now the poster child for this, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I digress. You want to talk about some video games?
Yeah, let's talk about video games. We can save the doom and gloom for another episode, because right now we have a lot to cover, so let's get right into it.
In my opinion, the true gloom is that there wasn't a Doom game this year. Not that I would have had fucking time to play it.
Ugh, okay, all right. Enough dad jokes. Let's talk Forspoken.
Do we have to?
No, we don't. I can't believe that. Is that really the game that kicked off this year, though?
That was the first major release of 2023.
What a bad representation of what the year ended up being for games. Forspoken comes out in January. I wouldn't blame someone for looking at that and being like, this is going to be a bad year.
This was a weird one because I'll tell you, after watching the first maybe two trailers, I was actually kind of into Forspoken. I was like, okay, I love a big fantasy world. It looks very high-paced. It looks like a magical combat system. I could be really into that. And then we saw the second trailer where she was like, I'm talking to a freaking dragon.
The one that got memed relentlessly. That opened up so much dialogue about, just cringe, a lot of people call it Joss Whedon dialogue, where everything has to be jokey and quippy.
Yeah.
Really bad idea to showcase that front and center. I mean, I apparently the game didn't do terribly, and the people that played it did think it was fine, but that's about what we can say about that. It was a fine game that was hampered by just horrendous marketing. Yeah. Now, there is a game that came out the next day that was shadow dropped that I did play, and it was called Hi-Fi Rush, and it was pretty good. It was by the guys that do The Evil Within. It was by that developer, and weird tonal shift, obviously, and also a weird game to just be stealth dropped by Xbox, but it was a welcome change of pace. It was a pretty good game. I'm not huge into rhythm stuff. I don't have quite the coordination for it. I also didn't find the music to be that impressive to me. It was, the art style is really good, and it was a well-made game. It really harkened back to simpler GameCube era games, and so that was really cool. And it was on Game Pass, so it was free. I thought it was a good idea, and I thought it was ultimately kind of just an okay game for me. A lot of people really liked it, but for me, I was like, yeah, that was a fun diversion.
I feel like at the end of last year, there was maybe one or two big releases that kind of got people jazzed up, and then there was a bit of a drought. And so people were really stoked to have like a new good game when Hi-Fi Rush was dropped. And noteworthy, it came out on Game Pass, so it was very prolific. A lot of people just picked it up just to play it because they could. And I agree with you. I kind of checked it out. I don't have an Xbox or Game Pass, but if you're going to do a rhythm game, the music has to be really engaging. And I feel like this wasn't necessarily a crowd pleaser from a soundtrack perspective, but for those people that are into that sort of genre of music, I think they were really going to vibe with it.
Yeah, I found the music to just be, that was the biggest like miss for me. It was not very memorable, right? Like a game like that, you would hope that you'd have days where you are on YouTube and you're like, oh, I got to look up that song from Hi-Fi Rush. I still do that all the time with Monster Hunter World, for example. That soundtrack is just so incredible. And I'll go on and I'll just get one of those earworms stuck in my head. Now, obviously it's a different genre of music, like you said, but it didn't have any of those earworms for me, and that was the biggest miss.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So, did you play Dead Space Remake?
I heard great things about it. I didn't get around to playing it. In my years of adulthood, I've gotten less brave. And, I don't really play a lot of solo horror games, with the one exception this year, which I'll gush about. But, not really my scene anymore. I'm sure it's a great game. I think the only game I would play are games I've already played, or games that are multiplayer. And Dead Space, I think the first one doesn't have the multiplayer. The third one did. So if they keep remaking them and they get to the third, I'll probably jump into that. But
it's funny. I only ever played the second one because I picked it up for like $5 on Steam sale when I was in college. I agree with you, man. I'm 31 years old. My job is really stressful. I don't want a video game. I don't want to get stressed in my leisure time.
Yeah, so and I've noticed that more, just as a side note. Like, I'm noticing that more and more. Like, games that I used to really love, I've stopped playing as much. Like Overwatch or like these competitive games. It's like I get so pissed off or I'll get so frustrated. It's like, why am I making myself angry right now? Like, my life is already stressful enough. I don't need to add on to that pile. It's just, first of all, unhealthy, but also just doesn't have the appeal that it did in my 20s. So I guess we're getting old, brother. But I'm definitely noticing the effects on the games I play.
I very strongly agree with you. I think that the older I've gotten, the less interest I have in even multiplayer competitive games. I love multiplayer co-op games, or I love like player versus environment. But I don't make a lot of time for PvP solo games, or even PvP like cooperative against other players games. The one exception to that is I did pick up StarCraft 2 again this year, but like this was very much a year of Craig sitting on the couch enjoying a peace and quiet in his games for the most part. Probably best represented by Metroid Prime Remastered, which thank fucking God to Nintendo for throwing this one out there. I thought we'd never get this.
Yeah, when that was announced, I knew you would be over the moon, and I'm glad to hear it was good and it lived up to the hype. I played the first one, way back in the day. It was fine, but I never really clung onto it like a lot of people did. It wasn't really a huge formative game for me, but I'm glad that Metroid fans are finally eating somewhat.
Yeah, it's been a good few years of Metroid. I mean, after I'll call it a surprise release. Like, they announced Dread and then released it after 3 months. They did a similar thing with this, where they just kind of said, hey, we remastered Metroid Prime. It's going to be, in HD on the Switch with updated controls. I was stunned, and it played and looked fantastic. Every time I start just getting very gloom and doom about the Switch's performance, I'm like, the Switch is dead, 2014 hardware, it's never going to look good again. They throw out a game like Metroid Prime Remastered, and I'm like, this is fantastic. If only every game that came out on this console looked like this, I might not need another one for a couple of years. But yeah, dude, Metroid Prime Remastered was an absolute treat, and quite frankly, a beautiful surprise.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Nintendo. They have wizards on their first-party titles. Like, Mario Odyssey still is gorgeous. It runs like a charm. It's not a drop of frame rate chug. But then you have other games like Mario 3D World with the new Bowser expansion, and it's like, whoa, this runs like hot garbage. So there's not really a parity. But I'm glad to hear that their wizards were on Metroid Prime Remastered, because it's a game that deserves it. Like, there's been, one Metroid game in the last, like, half decade to a decade? that's actually worth playing. So,
well, the leading theory now is that they were working on the engine for Metroid Prime 4, and while that's still in development, they decided to pop out Metroid Prime Remastered using that same engine. So it's possible we'll see Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remastered before we get maybe Metroid Prime 4, which I'm hoping will be a launch title for whatever Nintendo's next console is. That's really fingers crossed on that one.
That'd be a big move from them. And also, Metroid having such a role would be unheard of, right? Being a flagship title for them. So we'll see what happens. I didn't really play anything else in the month of February. There were a few releases, but none of them really caught my eye, except for one womp outlier, Destiny 2 Lightfall. We usually have a Destiny...
This is a urgent notification. I'm turning to Chief Destiny 2 correspondent Casey Kozlowski. Casey, how was 2023 for Destiny 2?
Terrible. Back to you, Craig. No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, Destiny, we usually have a segment on this. I'm going to not try to take all day with it, because a lot has happened. It's in the news right now. Whoever's listening to this is probably aware that Bungie has had an abysmal year. But if not, it's been marred by horrendous layoffs of long-standing veterans. The situation there right now is terrible. Soul-crushing, I believe a recent article described it as. Things are being cut. There's fear that Sony is going to do a complete takeover of the company. They're going to lose their independence. And this is all to say nothing about the fact that the year kicked off with the most dog-shit expansion to date. I don't count Curse of Osiris as a full expansion, so this takes that title. Destiny 2 Lightfall was a pretty bad game.
It was a mess.
Yeah, like the core systems, the gunplay, the things that you play Destiny for were still there. But it was like playing it was like watching a really bad season of a TV show that you otherwise love. Like, it doesn't ruin the experience completely, but it certainly doesn't make you excited about what's coming next. And that, unfortunately, was the case.
You know what it felt like to me? To be relevant to the strikes in the entertainment industry that were going on, this expansion felt to me like the TV shows that we got, or like the seasons of TV shows that we got during that writer's strike back in the late 2000s, where the normal quality you expect is just absolutely gone, and really there's no plot advancement. I mean, it was pretty common knowledge upon release that Destiny 2 Lightfall was almost a filler expansion, because they wanted to delay the final expansion another year and a half. And so what we ended up getting story-wise ended up in almost the exact same places where it started, but it's also had some of the weakest seasonal content I think Destiny's ever seen since they went to the seasonal model. Would you agree?
Actually, I'd push back on that, and that's the weird thing. I don't think it's that the seasons are really that bad. The last few seasons have been pretty great. It's that there's just this kind of sense that even I feel of, like, apathy at this point. And I think a lot of that is because Lightfall was so bad. It sucked the wind out of the sails that the Witch Queen had built up, which was a great expansion. It got everyone very excited. It revealed the big bad on a Thanos level. Unfortunately, this would be like... Lightfall is like if they made a shitty filler Avengers before Infinity War. It would have completely ruined that experience. I think we can agree on that. And unfortunately, that's what's happened here with Destiny. The seasons were actually not bad. I mean, Season of the Deep was really cool. This season right now, Season of the Witch, is neat. But look, I haven't played it that much, and that's the most damning thing. I mean, you and I played like the new dungeon, and that's about it. I haven't touched it to do like the story stuff. It's just it's hard to care, and that's one of the worst things. A long-standing 7-8 year fan of this series. I've been playing since the beta on the Xbox 360 or whatever.
Casey, I'm going to tell you right now, buddy, that was 10 years ago.
Oh my God, really?
The beta was 10 years ago, because the release date was September 9th, 2014.
You're right. It was 2014. Holy shit. Well, listen, even more damning than, for me, a player that's been playing that long, to say it's hard to care. And that wraps up my Destiny segment. Unfortunately, we hope it gets better. We're hoping for the final shape to be awesome. But things are not looking good right now for Bungie as a studio, and I'm not really sure they can land this ship or right the ship. with the final shape. But we'll see.
Yeah, they set out with this project being a 10-year goal, and they have 1 year left to complete that vision. And honestly, I'm rooting for them. I really want it to be good, not only for my sake, but for theirs. But it's really hard to say what's going to kind of come out of the pipeline here.
I want it to be good so badly. It's one of those things, though, where you almost feel in your core that it's not going to be. You know what I mean? And that's a terrible feeling to have about a series you love. But at this point, I think it's just so many times they've underdelivered that it's the more likely scenario. Bungie, prove me wrong, please.
Here's hoping there, friends. So moving on to March, there was a few games that came out that I heard really good things about. Wolong Fallen Dynasty is one of them. Apparently a fantastic action game. Similar, Sifu, another kind of Chinese-inspired action game that people spoke very highly of. And then we also had a new expansion to Dead Cells, Return to Castlevania. This game, paying homage to Castlevania for so many years, finally gets an official crossover. And my ass is kind of chapped because I'm a huge Castlevania fan, and all I want is a new Castlevania game. But this is the best we get.
Yeah. Castlevania, it is weird that they're sleeping on it so hard. Who owns Castlevania?
Konami.
Oh, God. Never mind. It's actually completely understandable.
I think there has to be something...
Oh, I'm sure there's tons of great Castlevania pachinko machines coming out.
I think there has to be something coming in the next few years, just given the popularity of the Castlevania show on Netflix, and now we have a sequel series as well. So I hope they recognize the popularity that is kind of bringing into the series again, and hopefully we can get more than just some crossovers in the next 3 years.
They would be so foolish not to. And who knows, maybe Netflix even gets a little skin in the game and they say, hey, Konami, let us make a Castlevania game. Because they're starting to wade into the world of development. I hope to see more Castlevania, because I love... the Game Boy games are kind of the only ones I play. They were fucking great, though. I loved them. And obviously they inspired so much about games that I know you love and that I love to probably a lesser degree, but... It's genre defining, so it's weird to see it not in a space that's now starting to be filled with things that have come from the past. Also, shout out Sega briefly for announcing like 5 of their dormant IPs are getting new games in development at the Game Awards. That was crazy. What a power move for them. We could pray to see something like that from Konami.
Yeah, that was an awesome announcement, and you're right. It's very strange to see the genre defining Castlevania games kind of absent in an era where Metroidvanias are so strong and so prevalent. We have games like Blasphemous, Hollow Knight, even the weird named ones like fucking Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth is like a highly reviewed Metroidvania game. So I think we're probably due for one soon.
Here's hoping. Looking at the rest of this list, I kind of notice I had like a game a month almost. And March... Here's that horror game I was talking about. Resident Evil 4 was my March game. Wow.
What an absolute stunner.
Yeah,
dude.
This was a banger from start to finish. And when I finished it, I knew that Zelda was just around the corner. I knew that there were tons of great games coming out that year that were going to dethrone it. But when I played it, for that short month and a half window before Zelda came out, it was unequivocally my game of the year. Resident Evil 4 was just so well made. I don't know what they're doing with the Resident Evil engine, but it's incredible. It's nothing short of a work of art. My computer, which often... It's a high-end machine, but it takes some finagling to get the right settings usually. Resident Evil 4 ran like a dream out the box, looked incredible, one of the best-looking games I've played. The story is a little bit better than the original game. The story was never really the mainstay there, but... It's still corny, it's still campy, but they've made a lot of things a little bit better, a little more modern, a little more enjoyable. The voice acting is on point, but the gameplay, oh my god. It's the same Resident Evil 4 you remember, but amplified to a new level with modern touches that make it an absolute delight to play. And I have to say, the biggest thing that I took out of Resident Evil 4 was excitement and hope that they remake Resident Evil 5 next. Resident Evil 5 remains... probably my favorite co-op experience of all time. A lot of people would probably chew me out for this one. It's my favorite survival horror, if we can call it that, but I understand that it kind of veers away from that with 5. Either way, it's one of my favorite action games of all time, hands down, and if they put the same love into that game that they did this game, I will perish from excitement and delight.
I'm with you, man. Resident Evil 4 was one of those games when I was in middle and high school that I just replayed over and over and over again. I ended up picking up the Switch port and playing that last year, just as good as the first day I played it. The remake, they brought everything up to modern standards. They changed the visuals. They updated, I would say, some of the quality of life and maybe even some social touches, like you can no longer peep up Ashley's skirt, which I think is a very appropriate change for them to make. And it was just a blast to play. It just felt very modern, but it kind of kept the same core gameplay. And similarly, I spent a lot of time playing Resident Evil 5 with my friends in high school. And I think that game is a can of worms for a few reasons, not least of all the racial question of, you know, a white dude just showing up and starting to blast Africans left and right, including tribal people. Like, that sucks. But I think if they can take the remake as an opportunity to sort of reestablish what that game could be, we could get the same quality of action and cooperation with maybe a better setting, maybe some better story to really make that experience what it should be. I would love to see that.
I agree. It's going to be the biggest deviation from the original if they do it. That much is already clear, just based on, I mean, it's not really a spoiler. You see some of Wesker at the end of 4, and it seems like he's going to be a lot more reined in, a lot more grounded maybe, and not being a cartoon villain. I still want him to be corny. I still want him to wear a leather jacket and teleport around the screen like a Dragon Ball character. But there are ways to reel it in, right? To reel in the camp or kind of modernize the camp. It's kind of what Resident Evil 4 did. I think that's a really good way to put it, actually. Resident Evil 4 is still campy, but it modernized the camp. So I hope to see that from 5 as well.
I saw somebody on Reddit post that if they ever did another live-action Resident Evil, which quite frankly I hope they don't fucking do because they're all trash, they wanted to see Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander in The Boys, play Wesker. How good of a casting would that be?
That would be a crazy casting. I think Wesker, I'm not saying Anthony Starr can't do this, but he's so good at being like very sinister, and Wesker has like this real goofball energy, kind of why he's such a beloved character, because he's just like this goofy-ass villain that is playing it sinister. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a real fucking megalomaniac.
In any case, I hope to see him soon in Resident Evil 5. We'll see. But I know they probably got their hands full right now with the new Monster Hunter Wilds that just got announced, so it might be a bit before we see Capcom drop the Resident Evil 5 trailer. But here's hoping. Maybe a Summer Games Fest or a next year's Game Awards.
I'll continue to say this to anybody who will listen. I think Capcom is the best AAA developer we have right now because they keep posting up absolute killers, dude. Street Fighter 6 came out this year. We'll talk about that very briefly later, but huge winner in the fighting game space. Resident Evil 4 Remake, a Game of the Year contender on a remake. I think that speaks for itself. Mm-hmm. I will say it again. Devil May Cry 5 came out of the woodworks a few years ago and is the absolute pinnacle of the character action genre. And they continue to pop out Monster Hunter games that are always peak. Like, Capcom really can't lose in my eyes. Like, I'm very excited to see what Dragon's Dogma 2 looks like next year, but if nothing more, they really know what the fans of these games want and how to really plug into that when they're in development.
That's a very good point. I think that might be at the core of why they're successful. They take every game, and they're not like churning it through this metrics machine like a lot of games are. Resident Evil 4 was a finished game that was delivered to us for the price that it was offered. And I don't want to go on this, boomer-esque tangent. Back in my day, you got a full fucking game. But it's true. Like, Resident Evil 4 was a fully finished experience. There was not a microtransaction in sight. It would have been so easy to add more skins to a game that already had ludicrous skins, or to lock some of them behind some kind of arbitrary in-game currency that you earn. It would have been so easy to fuck it up, but they didn't. Because Capcom, I think you're right, really are going first and foremost for the fan experience for some of these series. And they haven't missed a long time, and there will come a time when they do miss. They're not all going to be winners, but it's been so fucking long since we've seen one from Capcom that I'm inclined to agree. I mean, they're collecting W's like they're Infinity Stones, so keep it up, Capcom. It's their 40th anniversary, too, this year, I believe. So
yeah,
shout out Capcom. They are really dominating lately. They absolutely dominated my March with Resident Evil, and I can't wait to see more from them.
Here's to another 40 years from Capcom. And before we move past March, let me just speak very briefly to Dredge, because I know you didn't play this, and I played it pretty recently. A very, very solid indie game where you turn what ends up being a side game or like a mini game and a lot of other, larger titles into the main mechanic. It was a very fun and quite frankly spooky experience. I love open ocean as a theme. I personally have massive ocean fear. Like, I don't want to go in or near the ocean, but I love media that takes me there. Dredge really scratched that itch in a similar way to like Subnautica, where you just have no idea what's out there and disaster could happen at any moment. So I'd recommend it to anybody. It's relatively cheap. It's pretty quick play. It's fun. And it's not actually that difficult either. So
yeah, we love an indie shout out. This was and is very high on my list still. It's a kind of a long-running joke with my friends that know me that if a game has fishing in it, I'm gonna be very excited. I'm gonna be gravitating towards it. Any game, I'm serious. World of Warcraft with Destiny added fishing. Oh my god, it was on. Stardew Valley, I fished so much in that game. It's like all I ever did. Minecraft probably has the worst fishing out of all of them, and I still spent hours fishing in that game. I just love fishing in video games. So when Dredge came out, obviously immediately it's dinging things for me. It's an indie darling. It's got fishing as the main component. Yeah, I'm there. So it's going to get played eventually. It's in the backlog. Good shout out though. We like obviously we love indies here. I think my last two indie or game of the years were indie. So we'll see if that happens this year. And
not for nothing, they just announced a collaboration between a game we'll discuss very briefly later, Dave the Diver. So we're going to get a Dave the Diver segment in Dredge. Or sorry, a Dredge segment in Dave the Diver, which I'm stoked about. Absolutely.
Weird crossover, but we stand it. Yeah. Good for them.
What'd you play in April?
April, I didn't play shit, really. April was a very quiet month. This was kind of the calm before the storm. May is when things went ape shit. So April was kind of the lead up, and it was quiet. And it was quiet for me, too. I think I was still finishing Resident Evil 4 and doing playthroughs of that around this time, because that came out kind of in late March. And I dabbled in Meet Your Maker when that came out, because I was on Game Pass right away. Meet Your Maker was, or maybe I'm mistaken about that. I think it was on Game Pass. I don't think I paid money. Maybe I did. Either way, it was like $20 if I did. Very forgettable. The idea was so cool. A lot like Hi-Fi Rush. The concept was great, but first of all, wasn't enough content because it was very publicly.
Well, the idea is that the players make the content, right? Like you make stages to take your buddies through or something like that.
Sort of. So it's kind of like it's actually I don't know the name, but there's this iPhone game where you basically make a dungeon and then you're going and raiding other people's little dungeon platformer levels to get loot and then escaping with it. And if you die, that person that made the dungeon with the traps that kill you is getting currency. But if you take their stuff, obviously you get currency. It's a tried and true idea on that iPhone game. It's still very popular. It works here, but it just didn't work well enough. There wasn't enough variety to the traps, to the way you can lay out levels, to the enemies. And the lack of any real kind of multiplayer interaction was a little bit disappointing. I think it had co-op. I never got to experience that. I didn't have anyone I can convince to grab this and give it a go. And I ended up bouncing off this after about a week when I kind of saw, okay, there's a bit of a grind here to get new traps and things, and there's just not really much of a journey to go on. So, I think watch this space, right? Because I think Meet Your Maker could be a game that in a few years is a very full kind of experience and a much more enticing package. But when I played it in April, it was not. So that would be a skip for me currently.
I think what we're going to see in the next few years is an increasing trend in these like build your environment games. Like you're going to see games like Mario Maker, Meet Your Maker, honestly like Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Lego Fortnite, where construction of a thing becomes more central to games mechanics, and maybe there's a social element there where you get to play it with your friends, but there's this hunger, maybe following Minecraft again by 10 years, this hunger to construct environments for you to play in. And so I think we might see more games like this in other genres, and you know what, I'll be open to that. I think there's some room for those in the game
Yeah,
space.
there's certainly, I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the way that Lego Fortnite has released. And I'd like to talk about it briefly at the end, because this game came out 2 days ago and snuck into like my game of the year list, truly. So we'll talk briefly about that at the end, kind of what Fortnite is doing this entire weekend with releasing 3 new games within the Fortnite platform, which is very interesting and has some implications there. So, but I would say, unless you had anything big in April.
Yeah, Honkai Star Rail, my dude.
Oh, we got what are they? Hoyo? The Hoyoverse.
Hoyoverse. So I never played Genshin Impact, and I've only ever played one gacha game before, the Shin Megami Tensei gacha game, which I played for a few years. I never knew how good a gacha game could actually be until I played Honkai Star Rail. Like, I get it. I get the hype behind Genshin. I am a huge Honkai Star Rail fan. I've been subscribing to the passes, like the $10 a quarter pass, since I started playing. I get it, dude. It's just such a fun game. It's a very simplistic RPG from a mechanical standpoint. There's 7 different elements. There's, I think, 7 or 8 different like types of characters that serve different functions in combat. And it's just, you have an attack, a skill, a talent that's like a passive, and then you have an ultimate. But there's so much depth in the combat, and like you have to make sure your sequencing is great, and it's just a perfect little game to play on my phone for half an hour every day, and then I put it down and wait for my energy to recharge. And the art direction, the voice acting, the characters, top tier, absolutely fantastic. I know people have challenges with the monetization of a gacha game, and the limited energy mechanics, I can only play this game for a certain number of hours. But I think if you can get past that, Honkai Star Rail is a really fantastic game just to enjoy on your phone or computer, however you want to play it. Highly recommend.
Cool to hear that they're churning out good games still. They announced or revealed more of another one at the Game Awards, so they're really going all in on these games. I can't really say shit because I play Cookie Run Kingdom for the iPhone, and I've dumped hundreds of dollars into that game. Sometimes you like a good gacha game. I don't know. They can really scratch an itch sometimes.
I always think it's up to you to determine the value you want to get from a game where it's free to play, but there's monetization to it. I know what my income looks like. I know how many hours I spend playing this game, and so I kind of set a limit. This is how comfortable I am spending this much money on it. And pick a game that you like, and if you have the budget for that, then go for it, because I don't think these games should just be written off because they're monetized. I think it's just a good way to... I mean, look, we've been doing that with Destiny for 10 years, man. People do that for World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Like, if you get enjoyment out of it, that you feel like it's worth the monetary value, then go for it. No complaints here.
We've been talking, kind of a theme this episode has been talking about how our kind of, the way that we game changes as we age. And I used to really care a lot more about, I don't want to give money to them for a battle pass or whatever. I still don't love it, right? I still wish games didn't have battle passes and I could just play the content I want to play without them. But this is the world we live in. And I have found that, as the years go on and I start to get older, I don't care as much, or I'm more forgiving of myself for this exact reason you said. It's like, if this is giving me enjoyment, who cares? There's people that spend this money on other things that they really like that I can't see the appeal of. But I don't like hunting, for example. Hunting's a thing I've never been into. I've never done. I have a lot of respect for it. I have family that hunts. Not my kind of hobby. But if people want to dump hundreds of dollars into that hobby for whatever reason, for whatever they get out of it, that's their prerogative, and more power to them. And I've started to really allow myself to feel that way about gaming as well. If I'm going to dump $20 into some stupid iPhone game that I'm going to drop in a week, why not? It's the price of an outing at Chipotle, and I got some fun out of it, and that's really all we can hope for.
Yeah, it's up to you to determine the value of the games you choose to buy, I think. Unless, you totally get scammed into buying something shitty, but...
Well, who would get scammed into buying something shitty? Now on to May, the first game of which was Redfall.
Fucking roasted, dude.
I mean, come on. We could go on and on about Redfall, but it's low-hanging fruit. But I just got to say, this set Xbox back immensely. Speaking of games that should have been written off, Redfall. We're starting to see now, interestingly, some games lately have been coming out and the developers have to like pre-release it with this text, the classic like delay font. But they say like, hey, our game isn't finished. Please forgive us. We've seen this with a few games that have come out lately, and it's like, well, that's a terrible look, first of all. But is it? Like, would it have been better for Redfall to release with like a, hey, just so you know, we know this is rough. We got to get it out. We're going to be working on it for years, but don't expect a finished experience. I don't know. Because what they did instead was pretend it was ready to go, use all the marketing they had, and they released a fucking steaming pile of shit. Excuse my French, but Redfall, the gall of Phil Spencer to release this game in this state is just unreal. To the point where at the Game Awards when they announced Blade, which is awesome, but they announced Arcane. Arcane's taken such a hit from Redfall that now I was like, oh, okay. Well,
I saw Redfall's trailers a while back, and it never really looked that good to me. The stylization of it felt very, like, Gearbox Borderlands-y. And then I think it was when it released, there was a video game donkey video that just absolutely shredded the game apart. If you're gonna release a game in that state, it has to be in early access. You can't put it out and say like, hey guys, like this is what we got right now. It's like, that's like turning in your homework that's not really finished. And it's like, oh, well, no wonder you got a 70 on it. But you also get to go back and make changes and hope it gets better. Like, I appreciate folks that do that. Like, look at Cyberpunk. Stellar example of that. But you kind of have to own up to that. And I think the easiest way to do that is just to say, hey folks, we wanted to have this game done at this time. It's not complete, so we're going to say this is early access. But if you're going to do that, it's got to cost less than full price retail.
Yeah, and also just, this is another damning example of why in this industry, where games take 8 fucking plus years to make and cost upwards of $1 billion trillion to make, you can't cling on to fads. We've seen this with Arcane as they try to latch onto this live service craze, and we're seeing this with Suicide Squad from Rocksteady. And it's like, you guys both had beloved IPs before this. Actually, Arcane just released before this Deathloop, which was a Game of the Year contender. And to go from that to Redfall, you read these things about Arcane and they say, oh, we wanted to do this very different thing. We had this vision for this. I find that hard to believe. I find it hard to believe that you had a vision to make like another shitty Destiny clone. I don't think you had a vision for that. I think maybe originally this was supposed to be something different, but once you start getting into the weeds and you're like, oh, let's go for this live service, let's get metrics, let's get all this and that, you release this garbage. And Redfall was the first game where people really started to get fed up with this, I think on a more public level. There have been decriers of the live service genre for a long time, or the live service style of game. And for good reason, but now I think that's a lot more common. Now I think that's a lot more commonplace. I think most people are now fed up with live service games after the duds that have come out this year and just how many trailers we constantly see of yet another live service attempt. There's this odor to them now when you watch a trailer. And it's like, ugh, this is going to be a live service. And I'm glad. I'm glad people are getting fed up because these studios need to fucking take a break. No, man. Nobody wants to play another Destiny for 10 years. This is why you're seeing such a swing in the other direction with a lot of really good single-player content. I digress, but Redfall was a symptom of a bigger problem, I think, is kind of my point of that little spiel, is that live service and trying to cling to these fads, right? This happened with Battle Royale games, too. This is never going to work, especially in AAA gaming. You cannot be clinging on to things that are temporal, they're not going to be long-standing pillars of a genre. So, anyways, big fucking thumbs down Redfall.
Hogwarts Legacy,
terrible.
What the fuck?
Okay, we don't have to spend a ton of time on this. Obviously, I'm not even going to touch on the controversy. J.K. Rowling's a piece of shit.
Fuck you, J.K. Rowling.
But her media did give lots of people a world to escape in as kids and growing up. and was helpful for a lot of people. I don't hate the world. I like the world. I don't like the person that made it. It's easy for me to kind of separate those. It might not be for you. Don't play it then. It was okay. All that spiel and lead up just to say it was a mid game. It was cool to be in the universe and ride a broomstick around and cast spells, but unless you're like a diehard Harry Potter fan, I don't think there's a need to pick this one up, I'll be honest with you. It kind of came and went. Wink, wink. Another skip for me, if I had to give it.
Yeah, I love Harry Potter. Like, again, love the world, do not like the creator. I think that the world is interesting enough, but when you look at video gaminess, the spells and stuff in Harry Potter aren't really like arcane. They're not like offensive and attacky. There's like the spell that kills people, and then there's the concussion spell and the stun spell. But that's really it. So like trying to create a fun, engaging game with a combat system around that type of magic just didn't really parse with me. Now, I didn't play it and I don't really have any interest, but I guess it was solid for the folks who liked it, yeah?
Yeah, no, it was a fine game. I think mid, a lot of people take mid, as the fucking kids say, to be this like damning statement. I don't think it is necessarily. Sometimes mid games are really fun. A lot of people would say Destiny's mid, and I couldn't disagree with them right now. But Hogwarts was, and what you said about the spells is a good point. They did the best they could, making it more arcadey and fun, like shooter kind of is what they kind of had to do with it. But in the movies and the books, to an extent, yeah, the spells in that universe are much more like very like fencing almost, like very methodical swordplay. That wouldn't be too fun in a game, or at least it wouldn't be very easy to do and make it not be a complete slog. So, you know, I think they did the best they could under the circumstances. I think it was a fun game for like a week that I played it, and I was like a kid again. I was like, yeah, this is Harry Potter. Woo! I drank like butterbeer. I was like, yeah, this is rad. But yeah, it's a cool visit to a childhood world, right? Go if you have the means to do so. Just go to Harry Potter World. I think that'd be more enjoyable than playing this game. But do what you want to do. It's an all right game for fans.
Yeah. Now, Zelda. We're at Zelda, buddy.
Yeah, boy.
What even to say about this? Like, if Game of the Year happened in May, Zelda would have won by a mile, dude. Like, with all the love for Resident Evil 4 Remake, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out of the gate with just an incredible offering. And it's rare, I think, for a game to show really well in trailers and then come out and completely exceed even those expectations. Would you agree with that? Would you even say that Zelda did that?
I wouldn't. Sorry, would break here. Meek?
Oh, that's right. You didn't like this game. I forgot about that.
Get out of my life. So for me, yeah, if the Game Awards was in May, no, Resident Evil still takes it. Let me start with this. This is the most honest thing I can say about this game. I really wanted it to be my game of the year, truly. I really would have loved to be able to say that this is my game of the year. But it isn't, and it wasn't. And I think the biggest reason was that this is just more of the same. And I needed a little more than that. The story has inklings of being entertaining here. But the most fun I had with the game was like the final battle, the final sequence of events that kind of takes 30 minutes to an hour to get through, and that was the most fun I had with it. And everything leading up to that was just kind of bland for me. I thought the exploration and the new realm that was kind of in it, the sky realm, and also the like beneath
the
world, the cave world or whatever, yeah, those both were big misses for me. It was a slog to get up to the sky, and when you were up there, it was a slog to get between them. In the depths, it was just dark, repetitive, mundane nonsense. And then the surface, Hyrule, which has the most varied and interesting things, is the same goddamn map you played on when this was the last game of the year, in the first game. And it just doesn't have enough to differentiate it from the base game. The vehicle stuff is like fine, but kind of janky and not really useful ever. It's a sandbox game more than it is a Zelda game. It's kind of like nuts and bolts for Banjo-Kazooie, but obviously with more love put into it. But it's like they leaned fully into being a sandbox this time. And I think the game is worse for it. I think this is a bad Zelda game. That's what I would say. I think it's a good video game, and there's a reason a lot of people love it, but I think it's a pretty bad Zelda game. The temples are better. The temples come back, and that's really fucking awesome. But they're so few and far between, and some of them just don't even have an identity. The best temple in the game is the Sand Temple.
It's the only one that really felt like a temple, honestly.
It felt great. Yeah, you're going in with the tribal woman. Partner that you get. Yeah, and it's fucking rad. I mean, it was awesome. You go into these tombs, you're dodging all these traps. It really feels cool, and then you get into the middle, and but it just, it does the annoying Divine Beast thing again and kind of falls back into that identity that the first game gave it. I guess my point is that the temples were close, but they weren't there. And the ending was awesome, but the rest of the game story wasn't there. And there were flashes of a fucking awesome Zelda game. The Zelda game I've been dreaming of since I was a boy. And I didn't get it here. I got a game that dipped its toes into that, but ultimately couldn't deliver that experience for me. So this is ultimately, it was a thumbs down for me. Because I'm not going to replay it.
Wow.
Ever. And it was, it was fairly forgettable for me. I think the first game, which was my game of the year when it came out, unequivocally. It was so good because that world was brand new, and I was exploring it, and I was sucked into it. It was like being in a Miyazaki film. It was beautiful. You're playing through like a painting. It's gorgeous. You don't know what's going to be around any corner. There were a lot of problems with that game, but the exploration and being sucked into that world wasn't one of them. I never got sucked into this because it was just the same world I had already experienced, right? They were asking me to play the same game again with like a slightly different coat of paint. It was like a Fortnite season change, right? The Fortnite map changes about that much between seasons. So, ultimately, and it kills me to say this because I love Zelda. It's like my favorite series. I wanted this to be my game of the year, but it fell very flat for me, and I thought it was a pretty disappointing game for me personally.
I can understand why you feel that way about it. I mean, I will say, the overworld was different, but not different enough. The sky world was very small. I will say I really wanted more of the sky world. And the depths was far and beyond the most interesting, but also the most disappointing because it was just so barren. So from an exploration standpoint, I really wanted more to explore. I think my take on this game is that it was a fantastic game. I loved it, dude. It threw me right back into how I felt playing Breath of the Wild. I played hours and hours and hours of this game just exploring and seeing what was around. But this game shouldn't have come out on the Switch. It was just too big for the Switch, and I will say, like, it looked awful on my TV. You know, I have a 65-inch OLED TV, and it just looked awful. You could see the pixels and the grains, and, like, this game was of a bigger scope than the console it was on, and I think it really
it deserved a better system. Yeah, it deserved the hardware to play it, I think. And I feel for them there. And one thing, too, like you said, the exploration, I just never did a lot of that. And a big reason for that is... Now, I don't have the solution for this. Let me preface with this. I don't know what the right answer is. But the prevalence of the jump towers, the fast travel system, and the vehicle making really kind of took away from the joy of exploring for me. Horses were like, did you ever use a horse? Can you remember the fucking amount of times?
As soon as I learned how to build the hover bike, I didn't use a horse, period.
Yep, the hover bike, exactly. It kind of neuters the rest of the experience. And we'll briefly talk about Spider-Man, and it has a similar problem. Spider-Man introduced kind of a flying suit. And it takes away from the identity of Spider-Man swinging around and the identity of the game a little bit. Because once you get it, it's like, well, you don't ever really swing anymore.
Interesting.
Not true for everybody, but it's a similar thing. And I think I would have liked it more if there was a little less mobility or the ability to just... I mean, the hover bike completely trivializes the entire game. And for a game that's already just using the same map, I get why they wanted to do that, to give people an option, but yeah, just a mixed bag for me. Yeah, unfortunately, Zelda was a miss for me, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it. A lot of people did. It's a lot of people's game of the year. I think it's great. I just don't think it's as good as the first, and I don't think it was really a necessary sequel.
Sure. Well, let's not harp on it for too long, because we could have a whole 3-hour podcast about that game alone.
We got a long way to go,
Next thing
brother.
in May is Lord of the Rings Gollum. Insert fart sound here.
Yeah, can we... Yeah, insert... here, right after this statement, can you insert a big wet fart from my Discord soundboard?
Yes, I can.
Perfect.
But after, we went over the first 5 months of the year, let's take a break, dude. Let's go, have a glass of water, walk off the feelings about needed. Zelda and Redfall, and come back and talk about
intermission,
June.
Because we have so much more to go, and May, like we said, really is where things start to get ape shit, and things for the rest of the year don't stop, with every month increasing in the amount of good releases, it seems. So take a little break here, and when we get back, we're going to jump into June.
June. And we're back. And what a month to come back to. We're looking at June here now, which kicks off with Street Fighter 6. Casey, you didn't play Street Fighter 6, did you?
Nope. Here's my thoughts on it. Wow. Cool. Good for fighting games fans.
I'll expand on that a little bit because I am a little plugged into the fighting game community. Street Fighter 6 is a lot more of a success than Street Fighter 5 was. There was a long period of time, basically after Street Fighter 3, where the Street Fighter games kind of got more specific to people who were in the genre, who were in the series, and it made it really difficult to come in from the outside. They went the opposite direction with Street Fighter 6, and it ended up being a much more accessible fighting game, which in both the control scheme as well as sort of the environment and approachability of engaging with other players. But it's very widely celebrated. I mean, it won Game of the Year for fighting games. It has gotten some really great reviews, and it seems to be a new street for the Street Fighter series to go down. So, cheers to Street Fighter 6. It's not something I'm interested in playing, but I'm very excited.
Yeah, not my cup of tea, but fighting games fans ate well.
Something to be excited about. They actually announced a Spy Family crossover recently. So Yor from Spy Family is going to be a playable character in Street Fighter.
Huh.
It's very cool, dude. I mean, imagine if there were more anime characters in other fighting games or games in general. Imagine if Light Yagami was a playable character in...
Don't give them ideas, bro. They tried that with Jump Force.
No, but that was made with anime characters. This is a good game to feature anime characters. I don't know. I just think it's exciting. I like Spy Family a lot.
It's neat. I think it's weird that isn't Guilty Gear already anime?
Yeah, but I'm talking about
it's a weird. I don't know why an anime character wouldn't come to that before Street Fighter. I'm not complaining. I just think
I don't think Guilty Gear can bag a AAA anime character, brother.
All right. Well,
Diablo 4. More like Diablo Forget About It.
Yeah, honestly, there's not a lot to say about this except that it was a bit of a fucking wet fart. I loved Diablo. God, I'm laughing over there. I love Diablo 3.
Yeah, same.
And I played a shitload of it in college. It was one of those college games. And this was the same era of GTA 5, right? And we played the shit out of this. We played it co-op, usually. Me, and Seth. And we'd play it nonstop in the loft. But the 4 just doesn't have the same appeal. I don't know why that is. I don't know what they did differently or what it's missing, really. I think it's a lot more live service now than it was, and a lot less of a focus on a fun co-op experience. And then also they made the world a lot grittier, which for a lot of people, just fine. I don't love it as much. I kind of do like the more colorful arcadiness of Diablo 3. Combine all that with a pretty middling story that was completely forgettable, in my opinion, and you have a pretty big dud. Now, Diablo is a case of a game that's getting a lot better as the seasons go on. Apparently this last season was the best one yet for the leveling experience. They're finally figuring that out. And small things are added every season that fix a lot of the core experience that was really brutal. Things like inventory management or skills, progress, the way that certain things are unlocked, etc. So I think this is a game that will be worth coming to in future expansions, for example, because they have an expansion coming out next year. I'm sure they'll do a big bundle like they did in Diablo 3. That would be a great time to jump in, I think. I'm not writing off Diablo 4. I think it's a good game. I just think it's one of those games that's still in the oven, even if they say it's not. And give it a few years, and it'll be really fucking good and worth the price. But for now, bit mid for me. Bit mid for me, Jim.
I almost picked up Diablo 4. I thought it'd be a fun game to play split screen with my girlfriend, but it wasn't urgent for me, and so I kind of gave it a month before I looked at it again, and after the community feedback, I was like, you know what? I'm going to let this one cook, like you said. I mean, you said it. We played a ton of Diablo 3 back in college, and I remember when they released that expansion, Reaper of Souls, I think it was called. That's really when Diablo 3 was fixed. It was fun to play at launch, but there was the real money auction house. There was some real, end game challenges. It just wasn't quite finished, and so I'll look forward to Diablo 4 when it's done cooking, or at least it's closer to being its ultimate version. But to speak to the tone, I always viewed Diablo as sort of the successor to Gauntlet, which was a great game on the N64, Gauntlet Legends. And they took a step in the grittier direction, and it just doesn't make me feel the same way. Even when you get those green, blue, purple, orange drops, I just want to feel like I'm having fun, and I appreciate a little bit of levity. This one was a little grim.
It took itself a lot more seriously, and the world was a lot more grim, and there's a lot of Diablo fans that really love that. So, look, I'm happy for you if you're one of them, people that like this, but I didn't. A lot of people are like, yeah, this is more like Diablo 2, it's grittier, it's more adult. And that's fine, but I think there's a way to do both. Or maybe I'm just out of touch. Who knows? But I liked Diablo 3. I liked the color of it. I liked the arcadiness of it. It felt a lot sillier and less serious than this. And also, I think the story was just cooler. I mean, I remember more of the story and the boss fights from that than I do this one. So, I don't know. It's not for everybody. I think Diablo 4 is a good game, and I think it'll become a better game in time. So I would hold off until it's got a couple expansions under its belt.
I think there's a pivotal couple of years coming for Activision Blizzard here. When it was just Blizzard, loved it. I thought Blizzard could do no wrong. But since it became Activision Blizzard, they've been boiled by controversy. I still think Call of Duty sucks, but you see a lot of the issues with the company culture and performance and monetization of games. Let's not forget Diablo Immortal and the absolute shit show that was last year. So I'm going to give them the opportunity to kind of touch this game up, but my expectations for Activision Blizzard are very low these days, even though there are still many people out there who are who basically just play Activision Blizzard games. They're I've got StarCraft for my RTS, I've got World of Warcraft for my MMO, and I've got Overwatch for my shooter, I've got Diablo for my looter. What, I have all the genres covered. What else do I need to play? There are people out there like that still.
Oh, look, I'm one of them. I get it. They're a hard studio to stand behind. I play a lot of WoW, I play a lot of Hearthstone, and I play Overwatch now and then, though that's gone down in playtime significantly since they released 2, quote unquote. It's hard to get behind the decisions they make. It's hard to get behind the tumultuous relationship they have with their fans, right? It's tough. I get it. But the thing is, they have these IPs that are established. They have these worlds that people have sunk so much time into. It's like they have 3 destinies, you know what I mean? They have these universes that people are attached to. And so, I get it. I get why they're so big. But Phil Spencer, good luck. Phil Spencer, who I know is listening to this podcast, you got a lot of work to do to right the ship that Bobby Kotick has fucking sank over the last 2 decades. It's going to be a rough ride, but all we can do is be hopeful, because if Activision Blizzard makes good content, then we as gamer fans get a W. So praying for you, Activision Blizzard, figure it out.
Now, this next game is one that pretty much everybody in the world texted me about and was like, dude, you're going to love this game. Final Fantasy 16, the combat director was the same combat director from Devil May Cry. And so everybody was like, Craig's going to love this. He has to play this. This is a game I did not play.
Dude, same, yeah. I mean, I bought it. I own the game. I own the damn $70 fucking title on PlayStation 5. But unfortunately, it ran like dog doo-doo on the PS5. And the performance issues were abysmal. And I was shocked to find nobody talking about this when it came out. I was like, dude, this is like performance mode. It doesn't work. Performance mode didn't work. It was not 60 FPS, man. It was like 40 with regular frame drops, stuttering left and right. No way to turn off motion blur. It was a nightmarish experience at launch. And I've heard some of this has been fixed. I think motion blur can be disabled. I pray that they fix some of the performance, but it's a game that if I play again, I'm just going to double dip, unfortunately, and play on PC because damn, dude, you had the PS5's hardware to work with, and you still made a game that it was that poorly optimized. I don't want to shit on the game's content because I heard it was a good game, and I'd love to play it. I heard it was basically anime Game of Thrones, you know? It's fucking Final Fantasy Game of Thrones. That sounds fucking rad. It sounds up my alley. But I am a little bit of a snob. Not even a snob, but like I demand more out of a $70 game on a next-gen console. I'm sorry. No ability to turn off motion blur. You're going to make me throw up in the tutorial. I'm good. I'll wait on that. I tried to get a refund, but Sony doesn't do that. So there you go. Congratulations, Sony, on the free money for a game I'm not even going to touch. When it comes to PC, I'll definitely play it.
Yeah.
It much like what Tears of the Kingdom. I was like, what the hell is Breath of the Wild's sequel's name? Much like Tears of the Kingdom, this game deserved better hardware, or it deserved to be better optimized, because I can tell a lot of love went into this. And I love the guy Yoshi P, and I think this needed to be, I don't know, it needed better hardware or like better optimization or something. It's a shame that I didn't get to play it because of technical issues. That doesn't happen often.
One thing I'll say is that I think it's always coming down to optimization these days, because you can have a game like Metroid Prime and a game like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on the same console and look and play so totally differently. And then you can have a game like, we'll say, Armored Core 6, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and then a game such as Final Fantasy 16, where they both have these massive, dense environments with a lot of action happening, but the performance of them is entirely different. I think it always just comes down to utilizing the technology in a way that lets the game run smoothly.
Yeah, you present a good point. It is optimization over hardware, right? Because if you have a PS5, there should be no reason that your game can't look amazing. Look at Spider-Man, and look at Fortnite. Fortnite runs terribly. Lego Fortnite, which just came out, looks incredible. It's one of the best looking games I've ever played. It runs great on every platform. Fortnite itself runs like garbage for me. So it's like, again, it's just optimization. It's the same hardware. It's the same fucking engine. They're just doing different things with it. So, yeah, I agree. But Final Fantasy, you will be played someday. Maybe you'll eventually be my game of the other year. But for now, you are on the backlog because you did not do well on the PlayStation.
I played the demo for this game and quite frankly enjoyed it a lot. But I played it right after I finished Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which was deep into, I think it was August at the time. And I had to choose between Final Fantasy 16 and another game. And I chose the other game, and I'm glad I did. So I'll come back to it maybe early next year when there's a slowdown, and I'll look forward to playing it then.
Yeah, I mean, the Zelda games are always the slayer of follow-up games, right? When Breath of the Wild came out, shout out to Horizon Zero Dawn, which I played after Breath of the Wild, and I dropped like a bad fucking habit. I was like, this is not what I'm going to play right now. And that game still has not been played, so rest in peace to Horizon.
Well, that was another issue with Hogwarts Legacy, is that it came out the week before Zelda. And imagine trying to compete with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom when you're, a half-baked Hogwarts game. There's just no way.
Yeah. It's You guys got to time these better. Yeah, it's really a matter of. I'm convinced that like Horizon, because this happened to their other game too. There was another game, maybe it was God of War or something. But I'm convinced that they're going to make a third Horizon, the mainline Horizon. It's going to come out like the week before GTA 6 or something. Like I'm convinced. Because they just can't fucking get it right. But
it's a cursed series.
anyways,
but the only other...
Did we want to touch David? Or
I want you to rephrase that for certain.
Whoa! We don't... I guess my point is I don't have anything to say about Dave the Diver.
No, Dave the Diver is... I'll play it someday. Again, it's like an ocean game. I've heard very good things. I've heard it's also not a fucking indie game, despite what it looks and plays like.
Yeah, you're right. That's the only thing I do have to say about it. This was up for indie game? No, it isn't. And then Jeff Keighley's answer was not very good either. He was like, indie means different things to different people. No, it doesn't.
Please wrap it up, David.
Yeah, indie means... Yeah, play me off. Please wrap it up. Okay, I got to wrap this up. Yeah, I'm sorry. Dave the Diver's not indie if you're by a $1 trillion company.
Yeah, Nexon is fucking
Come
huge, dude.
Yeah, get a fucking grip, dude. Jeff Keighley, bad play. Not the only bad play you made this year. Rough year for Jeff's Game Awards.
Yeah. So to move into July, there's only 4 games that we're talking about on this list, but I'll call this the calm before the storm as well. Now,
another kind of calm month.
I played the shit out of Exoprimal. This was a game that I was so double, triple stoked for when I saw the trailers. I was like, okay, we've got a Capcom-produced, team-based shooter where you blast fucking time-traveling dinosaurs. That is exactly my shit to a T. And when I picked it up, it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be kind of like a Destiny, where it's like totally player versus environment. You're leveling up, you're getting new suits, unlocks, and it was really more of like an Overwatch type game. And there was a little bit of trouble in like kind of reconciling my expectations versus what I got. But once I got over that hump, dude, I love this game. I played so much of this game. It was a blast.
Yeah, I watched a review from Skill Up. Shout out Skill Up, my favorite YouTuber and favorite reviewer that I we agree on most things. He's got another person he works with named Austin who reviewed this one. And I liked his review a lot because he went into kind of how there is this very interesting kind of progression throughout the game where eventually you get like these raids that have like tons of people in them and like you're teaming up with the team you were just fighting in these kind of almost random events that
totally
happen.
Random, yeah.
But what I heard though from that review was that it doesn't do a very good job of matching you with players who are also on that step. So you could have people that are doing these raids and you just started, or vice versa. Like you'll have people stuck with these people that are just starting the game. And with a player count as dismal as it is right now, I just pulled this up for reference. Currently, we have a 134 player peak over the last 24 hours. Yeah, dismal. So it's and you just can't have a game that does that, right? That kind of already is struggling and then chops up its player base even more. So I think Exoprimal had a lot of promise. More like Exopromise. Unfortunately, big dud. Not in terms of the enjoyment. I think most people that played it did think it was pretty fun, but it's a live service in an age where your live service needs to be hella standout to compete with the likes of Apex Legends, Fortnite, which is releasing new games within itself, Destiny, right? These long-standing pillars of the genre, and I don't think there was room for Exoprimal this year.
My take for Exoprimal's future is that they're gonna release it free-to-play within the next 6 months. I think they released it at full price, and I genuinely don't think it probably should have been. I would have paid $30 for this and been very pleased, but I think it has the structure of a free-to-play live service game, and once they do that, they're going to get a lot of new engagement, maybe revitalize it a little bit, but it was also like a B-team live service game from Capcom. Like, it's a very niche title. Yeah. The gameplay is very much like Gambit from Destiny, where you have two teams competing player versus environment, and then they come together for player versus player with occasional story moments that happen. The teams come together, and it's all 10 of them versus the environment. Very exciting, very cool. The gameplay is so satisfying. It's tight as fuck. But kind of suffered from a lack
it's
of
a game
marketing,
that,
honestly.
Yeah, it deserved better, I think. Also, unfortunately, I think the free-to-play might be too little too late. I think games like this need to be free-to-play from the jump. This reminds me very much of a game that I adored that died in a very similar fashion to what this seems to be doing. It was called Evolve.
I remember
I'm not sure if you remember that. It was from a lot of the Left 4 Dead's peeps, and it was one of the first asynchronous kind of PvP games where one plays as a monster, the other people play as 4 hunters hunting this monster. I fucking loved this game. I played hours of it in college on the TV. It was great. I loved it so much, but it was a $60 game with no content to offer other than the actual matches. It needed to be free to play. It needed to be. If it was free to play, I know that it would still be here today. But it wasn't. And they eventually did make it free to play with their dying breath. And I think that's what's going to happen with Exoprimal, like you said. But I think it's going to be too little too late. People are going to be like, all right, that ship has sailed. And, by the way, it was on Game Pass, so it even was sort of free to play, and it's still dwindling. So I think, unfortunately, we are going to be seeing the classic, we have stopped support for Exoprimal. Servers will remain online till X year and 10 years, blah, blah, blah. So...
Well, I got my money's worth.
Long-winded.
I had a good time, and I don't know if I'll ever pick it up again.
I'm glad that you did. I know a lot of people probably did. I'm glad for them too. I am sorry and disappointed that it seems like it's going to die, because that's never fun, and it's never fun to sink time into something and then have it shit the bed. And again, I'm throwing a lot of shade right now as these fucking studios that keep trying to churn out these live services that they know are just going to die in a year. They're peddling out these fucking corpses to be and getting people excited for them. I'm sick of it, man. Make a good fucking Destiny competitor. We're begging you! Nobody wants to play Destiny anymore. Somebody fucking make a competitor!
We're going to have to see one in the next few years, man. I mean, after the final shape, there's definitely going to be a power vacuum, right?
Yeah, dude. Bungie is imploding right now, dude. The studio's falling apart. It is prime time for someone to come in and pick up the pieces and make something that's actually worth playing, but nobody can figure it out. Because they're all just trying to do the same shit that Destiny did, but not doing any of the good shit from Destiny. Anyways, again, Destiny correspondent, get out of here. Your time is over, buddy.
Can we get this guy out of the studio?
Get this guy out of the studio. We're security.
They all got hired at the Game Awards this year.
Oh, shit, you're right.
Anything else you want to speak to in July? I didn't play the rest of these.
No, not really. I do want to... The only thing I'm going to do is we're not sponsored in any way, but I do want to give a shout out. Remnant 2 is now on Game Pass. That was a game that was stellar. People loved it. It by all means should still be a game that sells for full price from what I've heard, but it is now on Game Pass, folks. Phil Spencer bringing out the goods, a little Christmas treat. I will be playing that at some point because I've heard it's just great, like Dark Souls, roguelike shooter, basically. So I'm on board for that.
Well, taking us into August. This is the month, bud. This is the month. What? I mean, August 3rd, the first game released in August, Baldur's Gate 3.
All right, folks. When we did Elden Ring, or I think it was last year, right? When we did last year's Game Awards, we opened the show or the episode by saying Elden Ring is Game of the Year. Let's get that out of the way. If Baldur's Gate had come out in a similar year of quiet, I'd be saying the same thing when the episode started. It ended up having a lot of competition, but Baldur's Gate 3 will be my Game of the Year, I'm pretty sure. Unless I decide to fucking shift it up at the end. I loved this game so much. I got into D&D in the last few years, and I've been playing a lot of it. Baldur's Gate takes the D&D experience. It simplifies it a little bit, but it allows you to really experiment with a lot of the systems that are core to D&D. So if you get good at Baldur's Gate, you would be pretty good at a D&D campaign. You'd have a lot of the mechanics down. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the story is a weird one to talk about, right? Because it doesn't feel like there's a story. Because of, the different choices you can make, the way that someone's playthrough can be entirely different. But I guess I would say the narrative is very good, the narrative that they offer. But more than anything, I want to give a shout out to the multiplayer. I think the multiplayer was great. I think it was weird that it worked. To be honest, is what I could say. It's a miracle that it works as well as it does, and it's got hiccups. Baldur's Gate 3 is not a perfect game. I don't think any game made nowadays could be a perfect game, but it was fucking close, and it was a delight. And it was basically a 100-hour D&D campaign that I got to sit down with my friend and play, and that was really awesome and super fun. And I don't know that I'd ever play it again, but I say that now after kind of it's still fresh. Maybe in a few years I will, but I think it's awesome. I've never played a video game like this. It's my first foray into that, and it's stellar. It's absolutely standout for me. And I think I had the most fun with this out of any game I played this year, for the most part. And that's kind of my metric for my own game of the year. So that's where I'm leaning right now. But we'll see. I could trick you.
A long-winded take on Baldur's Gate 3. I've really only scratched the surface. I don't even know if I'm into Act 2 yet. I kind of got to this one a little late because I knew as soon as I dove in, it would just consume my whole life. The scope of this game is massive. And I think what in addition to the scope and just like the variety and the openness of it, the philosophy behind the development is really what's allowing this game to stand out. They've been very clear, Larian, the developers. They don't want to add DLC. They wanted this to be a full, complete product at the price point that it was released at, with no need for an addition, even though they've done a very good job of feeding back with the community and adding in quality of life upgrades, some character epilogues. Like, they've done a very good job of kind of closing the gaps that they left open in its development. But the sheer ambition of this game and the love that they put into every nook and cranny, where you have so many characters and so many opportunities for the story to branch in a way that no player's campaign will be alike another's. In a similar way to Mass Effect, like, no two players' Mass Effect game is exactly the same, but like 10 times as much options in Baldur's Gate 3. I'm blindsided by how immense this game is.
Oh yeah, and that doesn't let up as you get into it. My buddy who I was playing it with would often reference Mass Effect and Dragon Age, the old BioWare RPGs that were similar. And this takes that to another level, and I think you nailed it. It really is the ambition of the game that is commendable here. There's not much to be said about it that hasn't already been said by other outlets and people. I mean, the conversation this year was about Baldur's Gate. It was the game they referenced in South Park, man. They made it. It's a great fucking game. 2 thumbs way up. Play it if you have even a middling interest in D&D for a wonderful video game experience.
I am very much enjoying where I'm at in the game. However, it's not my game of the year.
Go on.
So, Armored Core 6, The Fires of Rubicon, also came out in August. And this is a very long series. There's like 15 installments in this series, and I think every single one of them came out before Dark Souls did, which I mentioned because they're made by the same developer. But this game is like 110 pure crystallized my shit in a way I was never expecting. This is a incredibly fast-paced, heavy action mecha game with an absolutely killer soundtrack. I bounced off this game very immediately because the tutorial is just brutally fucking hard. But once I got over that hump, I could not stop thinking about this game. It is the best action game I've played since Devil May Cry 5. It is so fun. You have so much versatility in the way that you build out your mecha, your armored core. And honestly, the story was... It's very Dark Souls in story quality, where, like, it's mostly carried out by the vocal performances. You know, you just get to know the characters. The plot doesn't really matter, but it was powerful in ways I didn't expect, and it led to these incredibly powerful story moments and set pieces that just the spectacle and the scale of which I really haven't seen before. And I brought it up while we were talking about Final Fantasy 16 because Final Fantasy 16 was really applauded for having massive set pieces, massive character models with the what are they called? The Aeons, the Eidolons. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the big like Titan things.
The fucking
basically.
summons, we'll just call them.
Yeah.
Armored Core 6 has some massive models walking around in the environment that you have to interact with, and not a single performance issue from start to finish in this game despite that. I am blown away by Armored Core 6, and it is handily my game of the year.
Damn. Well, if there's one thing we can count on from Software, it is great performance. I mean, those games are so well optimized. We've been speaking about optimization a lot, and FromSoft really fucking hit the mark every time. I don't know anyone that had problems running Elden Ring or Dark Souls 3 or Sekiro. Like, they all run great on most hardware. They really do a good job with that. And I'm glad to hear it's a good game. I'm sure it'll be on the list of, like, especially if it's your game of the year. I do think it's a case of, like, tailor-made for Craig a bit.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I might not be as you know, insanely about it, but it's definitely worth a play. I mean, FromSoft can do no wrong right now. We were talking about developers right now that are held in high esteem with Capcom. Obviously, FromSoftware's on that list. They're fucking titans in the industry right now. Everything they make is gold. Let's go FromSoft. We're looking forward to your 40th anniversary.
Yeah,
man. Keep it up.
From Software is a similar quality to Capcom, where like they put these titles out that really just don't miss. But Capcom, like the main difference is Capcom is a titan. They have multiple killer titles every year, and FromSoft really only releases once every year or two. Like this year they had Armored Core, last year they had Elden Ring. I don't know if they released a game. Oh, the Sekiro, is that the year before Elden Ring? Did that come out in 21?
Yeah, Sekiro. I don't know if it was the year before, but Sekiro was between the two, yeah.
As a side note, I did play Sekiro this year. Did not enjoy that game even a little bit. Had a really, really, really bad time with that one.
Yeah, we talked briefly about that. I remember you telling me. And it's a shame because I actually love Sekiro. I actually had a dream. I shit you not. I had a dream after the Game Awards that they announced Sekiro 2. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, that'll be fun.
Keep dreaming, buddy.
I don't know why I had that dream. I think it's because Wukong came out and like tricked everyone into thinking it was like a FromSoft game because they're using the same font and it looked very FromSofty. But yeah, because I remember being like, oh, Sekiro? Maybe? No, sadly not. But yeah, FromSoft, I want to point something out here, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but we talk about Capcom, we talk about From Software, we talk about Square Enix making these fucking games that are incredible, we talk about Larian Studios, and I want to point out that none of these are Western devs. None of these are based in the U.S., I'm not trying to call that out and make like a huge deal out of it, but there's something to be fucking said when the dominant titans right now in our industry that are making these incredible games time and time again are from Japan, are from Belgium, are from, Europe. There's something with Western devs where the money is too much of a focus, and it doesn't help that Xbox owns half of them, right? So
now you're not wrong.
I'm just pointing that out.
You're not wrong about the trend, I think, but I'll push back against that and just mention that Sony Santa Monica and Sony Studios. You see God of War Ragnarok, really stellar game, not really concerned with monetization. Spider-Man 2, like it's very rare. But the standout games definitely come from Japan. I mean, a lot of the Japanese games aren't concerned with being live service. They're not concerned with constant monetization. So I think there's a larger trend of that coming from Japan, but it's not ubiquitous, we'll say.
Oh, certainly not. Certainly not. I don't want to make it seem that way. I guess a better way to put it is that Western devs really need to take some more notes a lot of the time on the way that these Japanese studios and developers seem to prioritize player fun over the money. And yeah, easier said than done for some studios, but just maybe take notes. Maybe take notes. Activision Blizzard, I'm fucking looking at you. I'm looking at you. Fucking EA. Come on, give me a break. Anyways, we'll get to that. We just left off Armored Core. So I guess, the Sea of Stars, I'm going to give a brief shout out to. It is me and Craig talked about this a little bit before the episode. Sea of Stars is one of those games that's absolutely accurate to what it's trying to pay homage to a fault. It's kind of, it still has a lot of that. I mean, it's a very modern take on kind of like that Paper Mario-esque, those Super Nintendo RPGs.
It's like a Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger.
It's like direct
Chrono
inspiration
Trigger
from
is
Chrono
the big
Trigger.
one. And it's fun, but it still has a lot of that. It still has a lot of that slog, a lot of that kind of... It's a product of its times, even though it came out this year. And I think that's both the best thing I can say about it and the worst thing. So I absolutely have nothing against the game. Definitely check it out. It was on Game Pass when I played it. I don't know if it still is, but it's worth the fucking money. It's worth every penny. It's a great RPG. But in an already cramped year, this one did kind of have to take a backseat for me, and I'll go back to it eventually. But there was just so much other stuff coming out around here that, you know, I didn't have the time for a a very traditional, like, Super Nintendo RPG style of game.
I've tried cracking into these retro style RPGs. They came out with Chained Echoes in like December last year. There's definitely something nostalgic about them, but you're right. In trying to capture that feeling, I think I recognize the pieces of those games that haven't aged well. To use Chained Echoes as an example, I tried to pick that back up again this year. I got into this big town, and I just totally got lost because there's no, like, overworld map, there was no, like, quest markers, and in a world that big and dense, I just kind of lost my way around. And that's not really something you run into these days with games. At least there's a map.
Yeah.
So, you know, I haven't played Sea of Stars. I may pick it up sometime. But there's no shortage of good RPGs, modern RPGs, that have adapted these great quality of life upgrades that I don't think I'm really missing out by not playing Sea of Stars.
Yeah. It's a game for a certain fan, right? And that fan's going to be fucking overjoyed. But there's, you know, it's not a game that I would recommend to everybody.
Yeah,
certainly.
that fan is
Jason.
Jason
If you're a fan of, like,
by the way.
yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, if you're a fan of Paper Mario, you're a fan of Chrono Trigger, those kind of games, definitely give it a fucking look. And I think you're going to have a great time with it. But otherwise, you know, it's not mandatory playing.
Before we move past the rest of August, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my indie game of the year. Which is also Blasphemous 2. So just to remark on how remarkable I think August is. You have Baldur's Gate, which is the Game Awards Game of the Year. You have Armored Core 6, which is my personal Game of the Year. Then you have Blasphemous 2, which is my indie Game of the Year. What a fucking month, my dude. So, Blasphemous 2 is a fantastic Metroidvania game. You have incredible changes from the first game, most notably 3 different weapons to choose from instead of just having the one basic sword from the first game. Each weapon has a different elemental I want to say elemental element, but that's stupid. It's got a different element to it. There's multiple different techniques you can use with them, and there's also really cool character power-ups as well that make you just feel like you're really growing. And one thing I want to commend about games like Blasphemous 2 and other Metroidvanias do this as well, is they try to find creative ways around the mobility upgrades. So it's not just a double jump, but maybe it's a wall climb, or maybe it's, you know, you have a limited air dash that points you in the right direction. There's always really cool ways of navigating an environment that you don't expect, that aren't featured in the common upgrades. Like, oh yeah, you don't just fly straight up. Maybe you've got these hooks that you hang from that show up that help you navigate the world. They do a fantastic job of adding variety in Metroidvania games in ways you don't expect. In addition to that, as I think anybody who's seen any gameplay from Blasphemous 2, the pixel art is impeccable. It is gorgeous. It is so gorgeous that it makes me wonder how they accomplished that. You see the hand-drawn art in Hollow Knight, and you see wonderful 3D animated art in a lot of these AAA games, but pixel art just stands out. It's so rich. It's something that consistently gets better from the old days, and it looks so good on an HD TV. Fuck, it looks good, bud. So Blasphemous 2, top marks from start to finish.
Hell yeah. I've heard great things about the first, and I'm glad the second is also awesome. Pixel art-wise, there's another game, and I don't know the name of it right now, but there's this game that's been shown at the last few like E3s that is this pixelated game. And it looks incredible. So, yeah, there's so much that can be done with pixel art.
Is it a Metroidvania?
No. I think it's kind of like a side scroller. The vibe I got was almost like a beat 'em up, and I don't think it is that. But Yeah, it's like this kind of mystery game or something. I'll have
Sure.
to look it up. But point being, yeah, pixel art has come a long way, and there's still so much cool stuff you could do with it. Games like Sea of Stars, right, that are a little more loyal to or faithful to the old era of pixel art, still have, incredible animations that weren't possible at the time, and awesome pixel effects that weren't possible at the time. Vampire Survivors, another example of very minimal visual style that I still go back to from time to time, and it's pretty easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
Now, I did want to also, because I wasn't planning on an indie game of the year, or I guess I just didn't pick one. So even though I didn't give Sea of Stars the most glowing review there, it is my indie game of the year, actually. It wasn't a big year for me for indies.
Really?
Which is kind of a nice change of pace, because the last 2 years were full of them, and steep competition for the game of the year in those years, and they were all indie for me, I think, since like Breath of the Wild. And this year was a lot more AAA, obviously. We had the big hitters coming out. So I got a nice change of pace of playing more of these major studio games. Not always a nice change of pace, or a lot of big fucking flops as well, as is traditional with big AAA games. But I didn't get a whole lot of indie exposure this year. So I got to say Sea of Stars does take it. And again, I want to reiterate, I have nothing against the game. It's just a very particular kind of game. And again, if you're a fan of those turn-based RPGs with the action command system, that alone should be enough to sell you on this, because it's more of that, and it's really well done. And shout out to the devs, truly, because it's no small feat to make a game this impressive with a studio that teensy.
Yeah, the accomplishment that comes from it is massive, but this has been such a dense year for AAA games that, yeah, it's kind of hard to pin down such a solid indie.
Indie games got a little bit overshadowed this year, just because of the sheer density of these major fucking titles that are releasing after the COVID kind of dead zone and are now coming out finally. So I think it'll equal out, right? A lot of these are COVID games. Larian Studios at the Game Awards said that this is our COVID game, right? Baldur's Gate. So I think as the years kind of come here, they're going to start to, I think 2024 will be a little more tame. We're going to see fewer AAA games, probably a lot more room for these indie titles to breathe again. It'll be more of a balance, which will be nice to get back to a kind of normalcy, right, with the game industry. But that does not change 2023's deluge of AAA games. And next up, we do have to talk about Starfield kicking off.
Do we?
Starfield. I mean, it's Bethesda's first game, first new IP in years.
Yeah, that's true.
The first game in a long time. I don't wanna, just like I don't really want to even think about the fucking mediocre experience I had, but we got to give it a little bit of time here. So I played it. Craig has no interest, and I don't blame him. It was a slog to get through. I'm astounded that people enjoy it as much as they do. Just yesterday, I read this article. There was a mod for Skyrim that let you play co-op. The modders of that were modding Starfield, and yesterday they quit. They threw their hands up and they said, I'm not making co-op. And I quote, it's not the exact quote, but he did say dog shit, I'm pretty sure. He said, I'm not making co-op for this dog shit game.
That's so brutal, dude. Fuck.
That's pretty damning. But he's right, man. It's and then Bethesda recently has been in the headlines for telling people they're playing the game wrong, or that they should be cool with planets being boring. They're like, hey, when they went to space, it was empty. When they went to the moon, it was empty, and I didn't see you complaining then.
That's so tone
like,
deaf,
what?
dude.
Bethesda, what are you doing, man? They didn't even have to do that. Like, they made bank. This was their best-selling game release of all time, I'm pretty sure. And they fucking are doubling down now on like it being a good game for being boring. I don't know. You could have just kept your mouth shut. Like, you had your money. You could have moved on to making Elder Scrolls. In fact, everyone wants that. But whatever. I digress. Starfield was completely forgettable. The story had inklings of goodness. The tale as old as time. So many of these games on the list this year had inklings of goodness. Not greatness, just goodness. But we didn't get that. So Starfield was a completely forgettable, mediocre experience. I do not recommend it. I do not think you should play this game. It was like the movie We Bought a Zoo. Like a movie, it's just so forgettable. I thought about that because it was on the TV the other day, and I was like, damn, I saw that in theaters.
Jeez,
what was I thinking? If you bought this game, it would be the equivalent to saying, we bought a zoo with Matt Damon in the theaters. Don't fucking do it. There's no reason to do that. Don't play Starfield.
There was a clip of Todd Howard at the Game Awards this year when they were announcing Game of the Year. He did not look pleased. Not even a nomination.
Well, dude, it doesn't deserve one. Like, that's the thing. You see these fanboys online, and, like, look, I get it. Xbox fans have been down for a long time. You want something to be excited about. This is not the hill to die on. Starfield is not that game. You're not that guy, pal. Starfield was not very good. It's not even Xbox's fault, really. It's like Bethesda has been making this for years, so, unfortunately they shat out a dud. Their archaic, decrepit, geriatric engine can't do anything with space, man. That's not going to happen.
Truly.
Yeah, you have to stick to, like, fantasy if you're still going to insist on using this ancient engine, man. So, I digress. Starfield was not very good, and I wanted it to be good. No, another dud for me in a year of games I was looking forward to.
Whew. I mean, I've got nothing to say about Starfield. I don't think that even Skyrim is the darling that everybody thinks it is. I find that game to be pretty unimpressive, or at least the last time I played it, it was. Maybe they fixed it with DLC and stuff, but you have so many good space games now. I mean, No Man's Sky in and of itself is fantastic. I don't know. There's probably other space games out there. I kind of made that big shot not having anything to back it up, but Starfield ain't
No,
it,
I mean,
dude.
No Man's Sky is the biggest example, because it does a lot of what No Man's Sky does, but worse. And it's like, how are you worse than, like, an indie game?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's a question that is all too common these days. Just a big mess. And I think Skyrim, the difference is the world building and the world that you can be immersed in, right? I talked a little bit about how Breath of the Wild, I was immersed in that game and I wasn't in Tears of the Kingdom, and how vastly different my opinions of those games are as a result of that simple fact. And the same thing is true here with Starfield. I never felt immersed in this world. In Skyrim I did. No matter how janky it was, I was in that world. It felt awesome. It just felt awesome to be there in that world. It was similar to how Breath of the Wild made me feel. When I played Skyrim, it was the same thing. So it's all about the world and making people feel immersed in it, and you can't do that if your game's a janky fucking bucket of bolts held together by duct tape. Starfield, with Bethesda, get a better engine.
I hope Phil's feeling pretty good about his acquisition of Bethesda after that one.
I mean, fucking, they gotta figure it out. Let's hope Blade is good. Otherwise, it's like Phil's gonna be tearing down the fucking walls.
Yeah,
man.
Phil's not gonna be happy.
No.
What else came out in September? Oh, geez.
September had Phantom Liberty was the big one, right? Pokemon DLC, we don't really need to talk about that. I have not touched any of the DLC for Pokemon since I finished Pokemon. And I got nothing against that game. We talked about it last year, I think.
Pokemon Scarlet and Violet sucks so fucking bad, bud.
Well, listen, we talked about it last year, and I said it was almost a game of the year for me, because it's only held back by, like, just being a dog shit technical game. It was the only game I ever finished the Pokedex on, so I'm surprised I haven't touched the DLC, but I just haven't really had that Pokemon bug. So, Lies of P would be next. Again, I haven't played that. All I really want to say is that shout out to them, because from what I've heard, this is the closest thing a studio has done to feeling like a From Software game. And people seem to really be hot on this one, and the world is really cool, and the story is a little less frustrating than some of From Software's stories. So it's a game I want to check out in time. And then the big one is Cyberpunk. Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised you didn't play Phantom Liberty, to be honest.
Dude, too many games. Hashtag too many games.
Yeah, just too big.
Lies of P, I saw Lies of P on, like, TikTok dating back to, like, early 2021. So the fact that it actually came out, that was one of those games I wasn't sure if it was real or not, or if it was actually going to come out. A lot of people saying very good things about it. A lot of my friends in Discord keep talking about it even now, months later. I will play Cyberpunk. That's probably number one on my list for when I find myself with free time. I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 is going to take God knows how many hours. Once that's complete, Cyberpunk's next on the list, followed by Final Fantasy 16. No new games notwithstanding. The They not only did Phantom Liberty came out, but they also came out with Cyberpunk 2077 like 2.0 or whatever the DLC update was called, that added like a zillion new mechanics. You've got new driving, you've got new combat, there's a whole new skill tree. So they really, really, really turned this game around in a way that I think is incredibly impressive, especially considering how the game came out. So they won the award for most, best ongoing support?
Best ongoing game.
Yeah.
Best ongoing game.
Which they deserve it.
A little bit funny. I mean, it is, but it's just a funny category considering right after Phantom Liberty, they came out and they said, all right, we're completely done with this game. And it wins best ongoing game. But I get it, yeah. I mean, they deserve the award. It's funny, a really big redemption story for them. I played Cyberpunk the first time this year, so I didn't play Phantom Liberty. I played the base game after the 2.0 update came out because they completely overhauled everything. It's a completely new game. And it was great. It was a great time. There are parts of it that still don't work so well, but overall, I really liked it a lot. Really fucking good game and a really fun experience. And Phantom Liberty came out, and I started it, but I dropped it very quickly because it was just like, okay, first of all, I just spent, X hours in this world, 30, 40 hours in this world. I could use a break. And then also, like you said, very packed year for games. A lot of other stuff came out. And then, by the way, I wanted to shout out, they also just released update 2.1 like last week.
Why the hell not?
Which adds even more shit. Like there's an actual functioning metro system in the game now. Like there's boss fights have been revamped. So like the final boss of the game has stuff from the anime, from Edge Runners.
Shit.
Like
all right.
They added even more. Yeah, like and the boss fights are better. So they still added more after Phantom Liberty. They could have put up their hands and said, that's it, we're calling it a day, but they added even more.
Good for them.
Shout out to, CD Projekt Red. Really good redemption story, but I know that we are all hoping when The Witcher comes out, don't make it a redemption story. Just make a good fucking game. Take your time, please. When Cyberpunk 2 comes out, just make a good fucking game the first time. And hopefully they've learned their lesson after winning a fucking game award for fixing their broken game. So
more like CD Projekt Redemption, am I right? I'll be here all week.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, let's do another break before the big finale here, the last 3 months. Actually, basically 2 months, because, December's got basically nothing. Yeah. But this will be kind of our last act, our Act 3.
All right, we're back. We're back, and we're in Q4. And thankfully, I think you and I can both agree, Case, a little bit lighter of a roster, despite there being probably more titles in quantity.
Agreed, yeah. There was a lot of stuff that came out that was just unremarkable, right? Assassin's Creed, shit like that. Like, we don't need to talk about that. Forza... congrats to fans of those series that got some installments, but we're really here for the quality. And I think, what would be next on yours if you look at this list?
I mean,
because I know mine.
Yeah, if we go down by date, probably Spider-Man 2, but I didn't play it.
Spider-Man, I'm not going to spend a long time on this, actually. We can be quick about this one because I didn't finish it. Just for the listeners, I had a bit of a change in the last quarter of this year where I decided to work on my health and some personal things. And I was halfway through a playthrough of Spider-Man when it really started to get intense and the work started to get, intense for me. And so I dropped that shit. I still haven't gone back to it. I want to finish it eventually. I loved Spider-Man 1, but the place I was in, I was like, yeah, Spider-Man 2 is not high on my list of priorities right now. And I also, but from what I did play, it's more of the same. It's a lot like Tears of the Kingdom in that way. So I was down for more Spider-Man. and I got more Spider-Man. It's fun, but it's not going to do anything that's going to blow you away, and it's not going to redefine anything. Like, this very much is just a direct sequel to Spider-Man with a new story. So
I think the common
if you liked Miles Morales, go for it.
I think the common take on this one is that it's a pretty sequel-y sequel. You know, it makes updates to the systems and stuff that you might expect it to, but as far as a story goes, the common feedback is that it's pretty safe. Doesn't really take a lot of important story risks the same way the first one did.
Yeah, it's like if you're familiar with these characters, none of this is going to really shock you, right? And that's enough for a lot of people just to see a good Spider-Man telling after so long not seeing these characters done well. It's fine to see it safe for a lot of people, and I think it's fun. It's a lot like Ragnarok. Remember, God of War Ragnarok was kind of the same way. It was a sequel to the first game that didn't do anything that new, really, and that was fine because people wanted that, and that's what Spider-Man 2 does. So, it's good. I never thought it would be Game of the Year for the aforementioned reasons.
No way.
Right? It's just, no shot. The story isn't, engaging enough. Not engaging is the right word, but not like, creative or original enough. And the gameplay is just more of the same. So no fucking shot. I'm sorry. Spidey fans. No, that was never going to be Game of the Year in this year. But the next game, that had a real shot if you ask me. Where do we begin with Mario Wonder? I mean, I'll begin with this. I 100%ed this game in about 3 days, and I fucking loved it, every second of it. It was, again, this was during the time I was talking about where I was going through a lot of shit. I'm still going through a lot of shit, and this game was a great game for that. And I'll talk about a couple others that really helped me. But Spider-Man, I was like, you're out of here. I don't want to fucking play Spider-Man right now. I don't want to be stressed out about Venom, dude. Give me something better. For where I'm at, and Super Mario Brothers was there to answer the call and also give me the best 2D experience I've had since Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario World, I believe, on the Super Nintendo. And I'm not alone in that comparison. I've seen that sentiment echoed elsewhere. And one thing, it's a Mario game. It's super creative. It's super original. There's so much heart and charm put into it, right? Like, these things aren't new. But one thing I really wanted to point out, I love multiplayer games more than anything. Like, I love it. I love social stuff in games. If a game has multiplayer, I'm much more inclined to enjoy it. Mario did a really good job with having some really good multiplayer that wasn't intrusive. It was just kind of like a passive multiplayer. And so you could team up, so to speak, with players, and who are also playing in their game at the same point you were. It was like live ghosts, kind of. And it was a really cool idea and a really cool way for me, like a solo player, to still get an incredibly social experience and play the game alongside other people and help people out. You have like very basic emotes, so you can like honk your little horn and be like, hey, I found a secret over here. And if the other players are patient and tuned into that, they can come with you, and you can basically play the game with strangers. But you can also just completely fucking ignore this feature and speedrun through the fucking level and treat everything like a race. It's your call. A lot of people love playing Mario that way. I thought it was awesome to explore alongside other people and to go through these really challenging gauntlet levels with other people. And, like, you really build this sense of bonding and camaraderie with complete strangers as you're helping each other out and, like, rezzing people. It was really a fucking very fun twist on Mario. This was an awesome game. It was high on my Game of the Year list, but ultimately, I just needed more of it. I can't say that a game I binged and mainlined in 3 days has the staying power, unfortunately, to be a Game of the Year. So, close, Nintendo, and I didn't think I'd see a year in which a 2D Mario game would be higher on my list of enjoyment than a mainline 3D Zelda, but here we are.
Yeah, high praise for Super Mario Wonder. We're currently, my girlfriend and I are playing through this together. The online multiplayer functionality kind of feels to me like Death Stranding in a way, where you're all doing your own thing, but you can kind of help each other by getting to the finish line or getting across the finish line. from a split screen, or I guess the same screen multiplayer perspective, we're enjoying it, but it was super not designed for that. So there's several parts where the camera will follow a player with the crown, basically whoever finished the level highest on the flagpole, the last stage. And the camera will follow them, but there'll be a moment where you're suddenly moving very fast, or you're suddenly, jumping up through the top of the screen. And that second player can very easily get left behind, which is really frustrating because there's so many times when, I'll be in the lead or my girlfriend will be in the lead, and then something like that will happen, and then I'm just a bubble for, the next 90 seconds sometimes. So very, very good game. The multiplayer, the same screen multiplayer, feels very much like an afterthought, but it seems like they did a lot for the online multiplayer to sort of instill a sense of community in a way. So,
oh yeah,
no takeaways.
And can you believe we're fucking talking about a Super Mario game where the online like multiplayer is better than the couch co-op? But here we are, and I think there was a game that did it. I don't know if it was a Mario game. It might have been, but I remember there was this one couch co-op side-scroller like this, and the way that they did it was like it was the same shared screen, but when someone would go off screen, like this very cool stylized split screen would come into effect, and then it would be like split screen. Do you remember that? I don't know what game.
I could also not pin the name of the game, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
I want to say it was either Rayman or Mario. I want to lock in. I think it was one of the two, but they did it really well, and I think that would have worked well probably here because I haven't played it couch co-op. But, dude, there's so much shit in this game, like you said, that's just, like, fucking breakneck speeds, where the other person's just going to be an afterthought, and that's never fun, right? Like, you want to have the experience of both people getting it, so disappointing, I guess, to hear about that.
Well,
but, yeah, definitely play it. It's worth it, still.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's just something to consider, and I've thought many times if there was just a little way to bubble off when somebody goes off screen, that would be very, very, very much appreciated. But it's certainly, I just don't think the game was probably intended to be a same screen multiplayer, so go play it by yourself and have a great time with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that's another one final note on Mario Wonder. I enjoyed it a lot. Obviously, I loved it, but I played it online, and so I did have a diminished level of challenge. So if you're a person that usually wants a challenging experience out of your Mario games, I would maybe consider playing it solo. The multiplayer really does make it a bit easier. There's a lot more ways to, unfuck mistakes and, like, come back to life. And if you're not about that, turn it off, because you'll have a much more difficult experience. So I really think because they do the Yoshis and the Nabbit, which are like baby mode, like you can't die to anything but falling. And then they have this mode with the online multiplayer. And then I think there is a hard mode in this game, and I think that would be playing it completely solo without any of the multiplayer components. So there is I do like that. I like that you kind of have choice in how hard you want this to be for yourself. I loved it with multiplayer. I thought it was a good balance. So big fucking thumbs up to Mario Brothers Wonder. Thank you, Nintendo, for making a game I did like this year. Little shade for Zelda.
Well, next on the list is a dark horse for certain that had an incredible night at the Game Awards. I didn't play Alan Wake 1, so I didn't think I'd play Alan Wake 2, but I did play Control and liked it a lot, so it's not like this game is totally off my radar.
Alan Wake 1 was a great game. Alan Wake 2, I will not be playing anytime soon because, as we've talked about in our older years, I've become more of a coward. And I don't think that I need that stress right now. I think Alan Wake 2, though, is a very corny and campy game, kind of like we talked about with Resident Evil 4. This was a year with a few games that had that kind of cheese and camp. Alan Wake 2, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, can be very cheesy and very campy. Oh, yeah. But they take it seriously. Like, this is something we've talked about this with other media in the past. I think oftentimes when we talk about like Marvel, for example, and one of the things we talk about is how sometimes Marvel pokes too much fun at itself to the point where it feels like the characters don't believe the world they're in, or they're aware.
Yeah.
Like, if you're constantly winking and nodding to the audience about how dumb something is or how like over the top something is, it's not going to become believable. One of the reasons the Avengers movies, the big ones, were so good is because Thanos was not, like, the jokes were at his expense, but they weren't making fun of, like, the idea of the movie. Like, they were heavy. It's no coincidence that the only Marvel movies that took themselves seriously were the most successful. Because, yeah, we get that it's corny. I didn't expect Spider-Man to be, fucking not over the top. He's swinging from spiderweb. We're already there. We're already in for the goofy time. To tie that back, Alan Wake and Resident Evil 4 are very good at being goofy, but they don't make fun of themselves for it. They just let it be goofy. Alan Wake 2 especially is full of, like, live action segments and, like, very silly set pieces, but the characters don't, they don't look at the camera for the audience and go, look how wacky this is. Like, a Marvel movie would often do.
Right.
And that's why these games are so effective, because, yeah, it is fucking goofy, but because they believe it and they are in this world putting up with it, we are willing to as well. That's something that I notice a lot in movies, not as much in games, but I think, this year it's worth pointing out, because both Alan Wake 2 and Resident Evil 4, by all metrics, are pretty full of a lot of that camp and goofiness, but that world is still taking it seriously. The material is still taking itself seriously, so those things are more effective. The goofiness is more effective.
There's a certain strategy with camp where you kind of have to just assume it's the nature of the world. Like, like you said, if, like, you're looking at the camera, if you're acknowledging, like, hey, isn't this campy, then it loses a lot of its effect. But if everybody in the world takes it seriously and responds to it, then you just embrace it as a part of the style of the show. It's like watching a musical.
Exactly.
Like, if you watch a musical, you're like, why the fuck are these people singing? But you understand that in the rules of that world, they sing when things happen. So, similar. Alan Wake 2 literally having musical moments. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you see this a lot in anime too.
Yeah,
right? Like, there's a lot of anime that never give itself time to be serious. One of the reasons people love Dragon Ball so much is because it's so fucking over the top and ludicrous, but everyone in that world is still fully invested in the things that are happening. You know what I mean? Like, there are other shows that do a little too much of the fan service of the comic relief where it detracts from that world. Because it gets to a point where your main protagonist is turning and looking and being like, look how stupid this is. It's like, okay, if your main character thinks this is stupid, why should I give a shit? Like, so I digress on that. But Alan Wake 2, yeah, I mean, look up clips of this game online. You'll see some of the crazy shit that happens. I think it's very impressive that they still managed to make a game that resonates so well with so many people. And it's a testament to that. It's a testament to letting your world be wacky if it's going to be wacky. And you don't need to point out to people that it's wacky. We know it.
Yeah, great point. And not for nothing, people seem to really love just how much of themselves the development staff put into this game. The main character is literally I think the main character is one of the developers. Like, they used his model for it.
Sam Lake is in the game as, like, a main guy, yeah, so,
it's kind of like a work of passion, very clearly a work
It was a passion, yeah. So much love was clearly put into this, and that also ties into it, right? It's like, I think a lot of the times this knee-jerk reaction to, like, quip at your own content is kind of an insecurity in a way. It's like, okay, why aren't you just letting it breathe? It can be goofy. Things can be wacky. Yeah. Like, dude, here's a great example. Just what I know, I'm kind of on this comic book train, but look at the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Those are so beloved because they're the goofiest fucking things Marvel's, like, ever made, but nobody in the movie is, like, making fun of that. That's the world they're in, and they live in it, and they take it seriously. And they're fucking awesome movies because of that. It's a confidence in your goofy world, and I think that's something that a lot of games and movies and anime and everything can be lacking. So it's nice and refreshing to see two games on this year's list embrace that wackiness to great effect.
Heard that, brother. And that takes us through October into the last real significant month, which is November. And my very good buddy, I'm going to let you introduce our next game.
Oh, wow. I've never meant this more. You shouldn't have. It's Thirsty Suitors.
So we have ragged on this game a lot, like, off podcast, like in our private conversations. not for nothing, the art direction is really challenging in a way that makes me feel like, is it because of a stylization or a lack of talent? But I'll say, I listen to a fair amount of gaming podcasts and kind of consume critical gaming, content. And Thirsty Suitors has been pretty widely praised for what it brings to the table. So maybe fuck me, fuck you too. This game could be good. I guess.
I want to give you a shout out right now because I've never heard this. It's beautiful what you did here by calling it a challenging art style. I've never heard that before. I've never heard a better way to be respectfully shady to something. You know what I mean? Like this was a challenging watch. I'm gonna start using that all the time. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's something I keep in my pocket, dude. So it's like, it is not
this
saying
is
it's
a challenging
bad.
game to get behind. We've been dunking on this for years, and it's probably right. Respectfully, it's probably a very good game, but it's just it's such an easy target because the animations are so weird and the subject matter is so goofy, and it just reeks of worse Scott Pilgrim in a way. And so it was fighting an uphill battle from the jump, but the devs behind it are passionate, so not to detract from their work, but come on, Thirsty Suitors has been our punching bag. It's finally out. We had to give a little bit of a segment to it. Everyone play Thirsty Suitors. Fuck yeah, Thirsty Suitors t-shirts at craigandcasey.com.
100 years Thirsty Suitors.
Thirsty Suitors the movie, Thirsty Suitors the fucking Peacock series. Let's do it. Ship it.
I'm down, quite frankly.
Call of Duty.
Yikes.
Where does a man begin?
So I want to lead into this. We'll call it a segment. I want to lead into discussion of this game by mentioning how fucking salty the developers of Call of Duty got, or at least a few of them, after Christopher Judge's intro at the Game Awards this week, where he was like, yeah, my speech last year was longer than the Call of Duty campaign. Did you see their responses?
I saw that too. I saw there was a backlash from a few outspoken developers on Twitter. And, yikes, man. Probably not a fight you want to pick with a guy who was in a Game of the Year winner and contender. Your game sucks. Okay.
Call of Duty needs to fucking sit down, dude. How do you...
yeah.
So
Well, dude, so here's the infuriating thing. Call of Duty, this game was supposed to just be an add-on or something, but before that, for the last few years, they kept talking about how they're going to stop with the yearly cadence, and they were going to give developers more time and do every other year, so they can at least have an extra full year of development and resources to make, campaigns and games that people could actually play and they could actually be proud of. What the fuck happened? We did the opposite. Now, this year's release was less baked than usual, which is a fucking monument to their ineptitude. How do you pull that off?
I think Call of Duty was
Blunder your games are already bare bones,
wasn't it?
It was what?
I think Call of Duty was Blunder of the Year last year.
Yeah. Well, it may have been. That might have been the year that had the worst multiplayer out of the box I'd ever experienced. That tried to do play the games and highlight intros, and it was horrendous. I'm gonna give credit where it's due. This year's Call of Duty multiplayer is fine. It's not awful. It's just fine. It's not bad at all. It's not great either, for the following fucking reasons, which were a huge surprise to me when I purchased this game for $70 US. Turns out you can just use all the guns you had from Modern Warfare 2, not to be confused with Modern Warfare 2 Remastered or Modern Warfare 2 for the Xbox 360. I'm talking about Modern Warfare 2 from 2 years ago or something.
Modern Warfare 2 2021.
Yeah, you can take those guns and just play with them in the new one. You can also be Nicki Minaj, the puppet from Jigsaw,
Homelander,
Spawn, Starlight, fucking 21 Savage. You could just be these random fucking dipshits on the field. And so I bought this game, and I was expecting, because they brought back all the maps from the old games, which is cool. It's nostalgia bait, but okay, I was down for some nostalgia. So I buy this game, and I'm expecting a traditional Call of Duty experience. Everyone starts with the same dog shit guns. You level them up through playing, and then you eventually prestige, and all your guns get reset, but you get a cool little badge next to your name. No, sir. You get a laser gun pre-order fucking bonus gun. You get all your guns from the last game, so I'm horribly outgunned from the start because I am limited to the starting guns because I didn't play the first 2 fucking Modern Warfares. And so, people are running around with flamethrowers, laser guns, the fucking Rick and Morty portal, and I'm sitting here using a pea shooter, so that sucks ass. And then also, I got Nicki Minaj shooting me in the ass in the middle of a fucking world war. What?
Yeah, I think...
And all these things combined, I was just blown away. I was playing it with my friend, and I was like, dude, this is terrible. Like, what? What? Why is this in this game? And I was just so flabbergasted. And I go over to the fucking store, and there's 18 bundles for different characters. Like, I can be a fucking DJ or something, or fucking Violet Evergarden. Like, I was like, what is this?
Wait, what? Really?
What is going on? Not by name, but it's literally her. Yeah, like some fucking...
Some just
elf,
anime girl.
Cosmic, time traveler witch shit. And, like, it was just exhausting, frankly. It was exhausting to turn this game on and see that even in the game, they market it as being, like, the throwback game. Like, hey, come play this. It's all the old maps, You can use your old guns. It was a lie. Like, it's still just... Having people use the same guns from the last game to me is the most egregious thing I ever heard of. I don't know how long they've been doing that. Maybe I'm out of the loop. But one of the core things of a game like this is everyone starting at the same level, starting at the same starting line.
Right. And
that just wasn't here. And to me, that was the most damning thing I'd ever seen. I was like, wow, I guess Call of Duty really has jumped the fucking shark. So I don't know, guys, go enjoy your Nicki Minaj concert in the middle of fucking Normandy, I guess that's what we're doing now. So have fun. And then I gotta also say the campaign apparently sucked, ass. And that's also really disappointing to me because one of the saving graces of the game is usually that the campaign will at least be fun. But half the Call of Duties that come out now don't have campaigns. And when they do come out, I guess it sucks like this one. So I'm just kind of over it. I say this every year and I get tricked into playing this fucking terrible series. And it's like, dude, you need to reinvent this or something because this is just unreal. It would have been so easy to please me. I didn't need much. Just actual guns and not having Nicki Minaj in my war. I didn't think I was asking for much, but so I digress. Call of Duty, you know what? Actually, Redfall was a terrible game. Gollum was a terrible game, but Call of Duty, and if this is true that I gave it last year, I'm giving it again. It'll be back-to-back years. No. This is my blunder of the year. Call of Duty is my blunder of the year. This game fucking sucks dick!
You just said a lot of stuff, and I don't know really what else I can add. But I think that they've kind of lost the spirit of Call of Duty. Look at the name, Call of Duty. This series used to be about soldiers winning wars for freedom, like kind of bearing the burden of responsibility in the way that soldiers in wartime do. And what they've tried to turn it into is like Fortnite. They're just like, oh yeah, here's Nicki Minaj shooting Homelander with a laser gun. Like,
it's very much Fortnite syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and so
it works in Fortnite because it's a goofy game with cartoons. But when I have a real model of Snoop Dogg fighting with me in the middle of a war that's supposed to be like somewhat serious, it's like, dude, I'm Call of Duty is not meant for me anymore, and that's. It's a hard pill to swallow because I was like the most casual fan there was. How do you lose my trust? But they did it.
Well, I think that they need to really look inward. I mean, here's the thing. Call of Duty still sells fucking so much. It sold a ton of Modern Warfare 3, even with the terrible community feedback.
Yeah, nothing will change. Nothing will change. They'll make a better campaign, and then people will be like, okay, we're good now. Here's our $80 because make no mistake, they're gonna start charging more.
Yeah.
They were the people that kind of started the $70 horse shit, and they're gonna keep going and going and going, man. It's a disgrace. So yeah, blunder of the fucking year. Blunder of the decade, dude. This entire series. Ay, ay, ay. If it's 2 years in a row, is it too early to call it? I guess next year we'll know. If next year I, for some reason, play Call of Duty and it still sucks, then I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it, blunder of the decade.
This has been the Casey Kozlowski Call of Duty Comedy Hour.
Yeah, we have a new segment, guys. That was Casey Kozlowski, our Call of Duty correspondent. He's going to come in here now and then, and he's a lot more angry than the Destiny one, usually, as you can see.
Let's move on. So The Last Faith, this one's on here. This is supposed to be another Metroidvania in the style of Blasphemous. Supposed to be some really gorgeous pixel art. One of my coworkers is obsessed with Metroidvania games and was like, dude, Cobra, you got to get this one. And I'm like, all right, it's on the list. It looks fantastic. I'll play it when I have the time. But I thought I'd throw it on here because apparently it's very well received.
Cool, yeah. I honestly never even heard of it, so hopefully this puts it on other people's radars as well, if you're into that kind of game.
Yeah. Persona 5 Tactica. This is the new Persona 5 IP game. I think they've said that this is going to be the final Persona 5 spin-off, though don't quote me on that. It's been, I think, 7 or 8 years since Persona 5 came out. That game came out in like 2016 or 17. So we're kind of at the tail end of these spin-offs, I would have to think. To just report, this is Persona 5 XCOM. It's a tactics-based game. It takes place between the end of the original game and the third semester as introduced in Royal. I don't really think it adds anything to the series, and I'm not, quite frankly, terribly interested in playing it. How about you?
Yeah. Agreed. I think, yes, we're due, I think, for a Persona 6 announcement in time. In the next few years, I think, for sure.
Well, we've got Persona 3 Remake coming out early next year, so depending on what they decide to do with that, as far as, bringing it into the modern Persona style, we'll see.
For some reason, I'm feeling 2025 for a reveal. I think that would be... I don't know why. I have a gut feeling... Yo, track this, someone. 2025, Summer Games Fest, Persona 6 reveal. I'm calling it.
I think you could be right, and I think it's because they have that new IP. I can't remember the name of it, like Paradigm or something.
No, it's like Fantasia Temptation X or some shit.
Let's do a quick little clicky clacky Google search here. So
do a little clicky clacky.
Atlas IP.
Leave it in.
IP metaphor refantasio. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
So
I don't know, man. It sounds like a SoundCloud rapper's name. Dude.
You're not wrong. So I think they're going to try to maybe let that one come out and breathe on its own before they announce like a new Persona, a new Shin Megami Tensei, new Etrian Odyssey. Those are really their 3 flagship series. So once that clears, we might see a new Persona.
Yeah. And Persona Tactica, I don't give a shit. Not in a disrespectful way. I don't care about any of the spinoffs for Persona. Kind of like, well, I almost said kind of like Kingdom Hearts, but I actually do care a little bit about the Kingdom Hearts spinoffs usually, because I have to know Sora's third cousin's true identity, who's going to end up being the major villain, usually, the way that Kingdom Hearts works. But yeah, I'm not a big spinoff guy, so this wasn't really huge on my list of didn't really peg on my radar.
The big difference, I think, between the Kingdom Hearts spin-offs and Persona 5 and any of the Persona spin-offs is the canon. Like, Persona 5 Royal is arguably canon. What was the Strikers isn't canon, Tactica isn't canon,
there's also
Dancing All Night isn't canon.
Yeah.
So I want to spend more time with those characters, but I would love for it to have some impact on the work that I've put in and the relationships that I in my playthrough established, and you just don't get that. So I don't really, I'm in it for the characters, not the gameplay. To be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, the most enjoyable parts of Persona for me are not the RPG.
Right.
It's the life sim stuff and the characters and the story. And, shout out to Kingdom Hearts, because that's a good point. Like, Kingdom Hearts does a lot of stuff wrong, and a lot of this shit is goofy as all fucking get out. Goofy.
Sora!
Anyways, yeah, somebody come quick! But one of the things that, I gotta give a shout out, they let the spinoffs be major canon. and that's cool. Like they're like, okay, this spin-off game, we're gonna let it be major. We're gonna let it have major impacts, on like on the world.
Well, they build them as an opportunity to flesh out the greater world, rather than just make money off of some shit that has no bearing on the total story.
Yeah, and it's a nice organic way to get people to actually give a shit about something they might not have. See, case in point, the upcoming Kingdom Hearts free-to-play mobile game, which, if it weren't for being Kingdom Hearts, I wouldn't give a shit. But knowing that it's Kingdom Hearts, I know there's going to be stuff in there that's going to be important to like Kingdom Hearts 4. So it's like, yeah, fuck it, I'll pick it up. I'll play it. So shout out you, Kingdom Hearts. Rare that you get those, so enjoy.
Well, that leads us into the final game, because I don't think we need to talk about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC 2. Like, don't give a shit about it.
Nah, I didn't play the first, didn't play the second.
Yeah.
So I got 3 more games total that I want to mention. Because just for those listening, fucking Lego Fortnite came out 2 days ago. And it's snuck in at the last minute to be relevant. And unfortunately, it's a great game. I regret to inform you. But let me start first with Super Mario RPG, which is the last game that I played of the year that was like a big, I was looking forward to this for a while. It's Super Mario RPG. Moving on. No, I mean, it doesn't do much different. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. There really is not a lot to report, but it's a very good remake. It keeps a lot of that wacky, like, batshit Square Enix stuff that is kind of baffling that Nintendo allowed in their game, looking back. And it makes a lot of things less painful. There's a bit of a fast travel system now, which is nice. There is a better action command system in place, where it's a little bit easier to get feedback that you're getting the timing wrong. There's a kind of limit break, I think is what they call it in Final Fantasy. They have like a limit system now a little bit, which is cool. And they have like, unique new abilities that have been added for like the combos you have in your party that do a lot of fucking damage or a lot of healing, etc. The only reason I don't like that one so much is that I think it does make the game a little bit easier. The limit system, you can't really you can never use it, I guess, but it's
one of those, like, you don't really need it, but we'll throw it in there because the kids will like to see these big collaborative...
You see Gino and the gang literally do like a Kamehameha. It's cool, it's badass, and it does a lot of damage. I think the only issue I had with the game is that it is still very dated. The core systems aren't changed, which is a good thing, but some things are fucking brutal in it. Like the vine climbing in the Beanstalk world, or the barrel mini games, or the minecart mini games. Those things have aged terribly. They're not fun to play. They weren't fun to play then, and they're not fun to play now. And unfortunately, they have not been improved in any significant way. Now, this isn't a terrible thing. It's faithful to the original RPG. I just wish a little more care would have maybe been put into modernizing some of these minigames, because they were never, I don't think, the part people played for. But that aside, it's a really good the music's incredible.
Fully orchestrated.
The composer went ape shit making all of this faithful to the original, but modernizing it and making it so epic and awesome. The fight with the secret boss in this game is made so much more intense because of the music. I think it's really good. I think it's a really good purchase, especially if you've never played it and want to experience the precursor to Paper Mario, the thing that really kicked off the Paper Mario and Mario and RPG games. This would be where it all began. Just know that there's a lot of stuff in it that's really dated and doesn't play very well. Overall, it's a thumbs up for me. But it's not groundbreaking. It's not revolutionary. It's just a really fucking solid remake. And a year that was full of solid remakes. So
yeah,
hell yeah, 2023.
I started playing the original Super Mario RPG on my Analog Pocket because I installed the Super Nintendo core. I feel like the core, it's kind of like Link's Awakening, that remake. Like, the visuals, the music are updated, but the gameplay remains mostly the same, excluding the changes that you mentioned. So it's a great way of introducing this game and these characters to a new audience, while at the same time kind of giving Nintendo something for the pipeline, which in what I imagine to be the end of the Switch's lifespan. We've also got Paper Mario RPG, The Thousand Year Door.
Yeah.
That's coming out next year as well, and that's like another very similar, fantastic RPG. I would argue that's significantly better than
It's peak.
Super Mario RPG, but you know, they're just trying to sort of bring these old games into a new audience. Now, the sucky part is that it costs $60, but you know what? They're quality games, and you'll have fun playing them.
Yeah, the $60 thing is tough, right? But I view it as like, you know, if you're brand new to this game, that's a good price for it. It is a good game. And I recommend this to fans of the original, and I recommend it to fans of Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi. If you just have a passing interest and have never played a Mario RPG before, I don't think this is the one to start with, I'll be honest. Mm-hmm. You might want to wait until Thousand Year Door coming next year, which is the best Mario RPG they've ever made. It's peak, if you ask me, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. So this is a game for the hardcore fans or the people that are just trying to see where it all began.
Well said.
And that brings us to... I guess it's time to crown a fucking winner.
Before we do that, first of all, we've already announced our goatees, so that...
Yeah, we pretty much did.
That ship is
I don't think anything's taken it from Baldur's Gate. So Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios, on top of sweeping the Golden Joysticks, dominating the Game Awards, you also have dominated Casey's Game of the Year award on the Game and Went podcast for 2023.
I appreciate that we can come every year with a different choice. Like, aside from Elden Ring, which, fuck, that game still kicks
That was
ass.
unanimous. How could it not be? Yeah.
Elden Ring would have beat Baldur's Gate 3 if they came out in the same year, for what it's worth.
Oh yes, I agree.
Cool. Glad we can agree on that. But yeah, like the good thing is that there was something for everybody. I love Baldur's Gate 3, but like a good action game that really just grips me, there's just no competition. I'm gonna love those games every time. That said, too many standouts in a fantastic year. I mean, we talked about a lot of games. Like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom could have been a game of the year in a different year if it had come out. Resident Evil 4 Remake could have been the game of the year another year. You know, Final Fantasy 16 could have been. There's so many fantastic titles that the good news is I feel like everybody's got something. There's something for everybody here.
Yeah, totally. This was a year where every kind of player had something to play. Every inch of the industry, every genre you could imagine, every niche, they had something good come out for you this year, and that's fucking awesome. And they won't all be like this. And in fact, you know, like we kind of said, things are going to get back more to a more tame balance, I think. This was kind of the big COVID bounce back. And it was awesome, and it was fun, but everyone now has a backlog. We could all use maybe a year in 2024 of a little more calm, maybe a little more focus on you know, big experiences that aren't just churned out to get them out the door. Looking at you, fucking Redfall. Looking at you, fucking Gollum. Looking at you, fucking Call of Duty. So we'll see how it goes, but it's been a hell of a year. Now, I did want to bring up two games right at the end here that I briefly mentioned some personal struggles earlier in the episode, sure. And I won't get too into them, but I've had, you know, a game named Sky, Children of the Light. Now, this game came out, I believe, in 21. I believe
you said it's 2019 on our spreadsheet.
2019, okay, true? So it's been out a while. Yeah, and it's from that game company, or that games company, the people behind Journey on the PlayStation. Yeah, everyone knows Journey pretty well. This game is kind of like online Journey, and it's, well, I mean, Journey was online too, but there's more of a focus kind of on the live service shit here. It's free to play. There are microtransactions, but the experience I had with this game was just such a fucking delight at a time when I really needed an escape that wasn't so intense or focused on action and high octane. This is a game that's more kind of chill. It's very zen. You kind of go through this world, and it has basically the multiplayer from Mario Wonder a little bit. So you see kind of the ghosts of people passing you by, and you can consensually extend. Okay, this is gonna sound wrong the way I'm putting it, but you can consensually extend your candle to another player. It is a lit candle.
Okay.
And if they also extend their flame to you, you'll both illuminate, and you'll see their actual character model and not just the weird shadow. And then you guys are now in that space together, and you can friend each other to go further with that and be able to, join them as you want. There's no communication. There's no real voice chat or anything. You kind of just honk at each other with these little sound effects. And so you're going through this world, and it's just this big, mysterious world, and your goal is very vague. You have to get to the end of every one of these realms and basically awaken, a Titan, basically, or an Elder. And it's easy. There's no combat in this game. There's very minor, sections of stealth at most. And it's just kind of a game about exploring this world and flying around and meeting people and helping other people. And when I played the end of this game, I was brought to tears because it's just such a fucking cool experience, the end of this game, and the way that it did things. And I was just blown away that a free-to-play mobile game could have this kind of impact and have this kind of content just available with no time gating or horse shit. It's a complete experience. You can just play from start to finish on your iPhone or PlayStation. And I was just so impressed with that. I had to give it a shout out because had I played this the year it came out, I think it very well could have been a game of the year for me.
Wow.
So Sky will be my game of the other year. I don't know if you have one or not, but I wanted to give it a shout out there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I don't want to go too into this, but Lego Fortnite's actually really great. I really want everyone to give it a try because I think something's happening with Fortnite. They're doing this with Lego Fortnite came out on Thursday. Yesterday was Friday when we're recording this, and they've released Rocket League's successor, Rocket Racing.
Yeah,
it's and that was also in Fortnite. And today they're doing the Fortnite Festival, which is by Harmonix, so it's like Rock Band.
Wait,
so
what?
They're doing like a Rock Band game. Yeah, and they did all of this in 3 days. And I believe it's the start of them trying to kick off a real Fortnite ecosystem. I think they want Fortnite to have something for everyone, kind of like we just talked about with this year in gaming. Mm-hmm. I think they want that for Fortnite as a platform. I think it has very interesting implications for Epic Games as a platform. Do they abandon Epic Games as a launcher and storefront altogether? Does Fortnite become their launcher? How does this work? We've never seen this kind of a game having within it other stuff. Call of Duty has tried and done it terribly.
Well,
but Fortnite actually, Lego Fortnite is it has more in common with Valheim and Minecraft than Fortnite. It's really a breathtaking free offering. It's not just a spin-off game made with Fortnite assets. It's its own thing.
There is some precedent for that with Roblox, for example, where you have an engine and then you have a bunch of creator and community-driven content. But what seems to be the difference with Fortnite is that this is brought in from other third-party brands, other established IPs. Yeah. And it's been mentioned before by, wiser minds than ours, but Fortnite is kind of what Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse should be.
Yeah.
Where folks get to bring in multiple, like I said, multiple brands, multiple IPs come together in sort of a Ready Player One style where folks can kind of choose their preferred character or avatar to represent themselves while experiencing a variety of content. And it is interesting to see Lego Fortnite and this, Harmonix thing, which I didn't know about. We'll have to talk about that when this wraps up, but
yeah. I think it's, Fortnite, and here's the thing, they've said that they want, the past few years they've revealed Unreal 5, and they've said, look at all this cool stuff you can do in Fortnite. And I don't think anyone was really paying attention to them. This feels like a move from Epic Games to say, okay, you guys still don't get it. Here, try this shit. And I did, and I believe them now. Now I get it. I think that really was, for them, okay, fuck it. Let's do a Rocket League, sequel almost. Let's do Lego Minecraft, basically, and let's do a new Harmonix game. I haven't played that one yet, but I'm looking forward to when this wraps. And, I think this is their, I think, I genuinely think that's their way of saying, okay, you guys aren't paying attention. Look what you can do with Fortnite, with Unreal 5, with the things we've given to creators and developers. This is possible. And wow, a commanding statement so far, because Lego Fortnite, I have not been able to stop playing it for 3 days since it came out.
Wow.
I'll binge it tonight as well. It's just, it's a cool time for Fortnite, to be honest. I know that people dunk on it all the time, but like you said, you nailed it. This is the closest thing we have right now to a metaverse.
Yeah.
You can get a character from any show or anime or game you want and play as that guy. And play now. You have a shooter, a battle royale. You have a racing game like a Mario Kart game. You have Minecraft, a survival game. You're about to have harmonics, and you better believe they're going to keep throwing these into there. So watch this space. This time next year, we may be, laughing at how little we knew what was going to come out. You know what I mean? So watch this space. Keep an eye on Fortnite. Cool stuff happening there. Check it out. It's free. They don't pay us. I wish they did. Yo, hit us up, Epic.
No, we have to maintain the integrity of the show, my guy.
True, yeah, fair. Don't hit us up. Then I wouldn't be able to shit on Call of Duty freely. So, and with that, that sums up my thoughts about this year in gaming, and it's been a delight. What a year!
What a year! I'll speak to my game of the other year if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, sure. I don't want to cut you off.
You brought this up. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I played The Outer Wilds this year.
Fuck, dude. Okay.
Buddy.
Yeah, go off, King. Go off.
So, the challenge is with this game is you don't want to say too much because the more you know about the game, the more it takes away from your experience. But it is a first-person exploration game. And your role within this world is to solve a larger mystery. And without saying more than that, it just... Fuck, dude. Talk about a game where I was left in tears. I never knew what to expect at any given moment, and I was constantly surprised. And at the conclusion of the game, it was just, you have this feel. I got this feeling of being so full and so complete in the experience that I didn't even end up really playing through the DLC. I felt like...
Me neither, yeah.
I just didn't need it. It didn't really scratch the same itch, and it was just so fulfilling, the base game, that I didn't need more. I didn't want more.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely remember the struggle when this was my game of the other year last year, I think
so.
And yeah, I remember the struggle of not being able to really go into detail about it. But it's interesting. I did the same thing with the DLC. I wanted to point that out. I also didn't finish it. I started it, and I just got maybe halfway through, and I wasn't feeling it. I think that DLC was probably great if you played Outer Wilds when it came out.
Yeah.
And then had, a year or whatever, or a year or two to chill before the DLC. I think playing them back-to-back just doesn't work. They're very different experiences. And like you said, it was like I was so done, and not in a bad way, in a good way. I was like, yeah, I'm good on that. It was like, I've been talking about Marvel nonstop this episode, but it was like how I felt after seeing Endgame. It was like, I'm good. I don't want anything more Marvel for many years. And that's kind of how I felt after Outer Wilds. It's a fucking absolute delight. As a gamer, you owe it to yourself to experience it. I back Craig's praise. Great choice of Game of the Other Year. And now, wait, do we now have one game getting Game of the Other Year 2 years in a row?
Damn, you're not wrong. Yeah.
Yo, that's high praise, folks. We unanimously have both agreed that this was worth a Game of the Year at some point. So definitely check it out. Absolutely. Do you have any other games?
No other games. We have a few pieces of multimedia, so like some adaptations.
Let's unwind with some multimedia, some shows, mainly shows probably. The Mario movie came out this year as well. So yeah, let's give a brief chat about that.
You know what, man? It's rare to see a movie that is under 1 hour and 30 minutes, but I did not want another fucking second of the Mario movie. And that isn't to say that I thought it was bad. I really, really enjoyed it. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. It was just the pacing was perfect. There was nothing more they could have done that made that movie any better.
I love short movies. I love them. They're a dying breed. People... I mean, there's kind of a film explosion happening with film fanatics and critics, people that use Letterboxd for every fucking film and have to give their thoughts about every little movie. People are getting more and more comfortable with these long movies. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm an old man. I like a short movie now and then. I think sub 2 hours should always be the goal. I don't want to watch 3 hours of something. I'm sorry, Martin. That's a long time to be sitting in an uncomfortable seat. if I don't have a fucking catheter. Please, you gotta let me go to the bathroom, dude. So, yeah, shout out Mario for being short. It's a kid's movie. It feels like a kid's movie. It's but there's stuff in there for everybody. Excuse me. There's stuff in there for everybody, for, all fans of Mario. My only big qualm is that I saw some of the soundtrack that was made for this movie that got replaced with licensed music.
Oh, that's too
particularly bad. Oh, dude, yeah. There's a scene that I think I want to say David Wise. I might be getting that wrong. The composer for Donkey Kong made a medley that would play when they go through the Donkey Kong kingdom or whatever, and they replaced that shit with "Take on Me."
Really?
I'll have to send it right after this wraps. You'll be.
Oh my god,
You'll be devastated by how good the music could have sounded during that scene. It was so full of Donkey Kong classics. It was like, what? We could have had greatness.
I would slurp up anything from David Wise, dude. In 2023, what a tremendous composer.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it sounded so fucking good, man. And it's like, wow. I mean, I get it. It's Illumination, so they have to pull in the stupid fucking pop music for these scenes and please the kids and. Yeah, but it's a shame. It's a shame. That was some of the corporate bullfuckery that you could definitely notice. Some of the corporate meddling that made it less than it could have been. But a good movie, a really good adaptation. Everyone thought it would be worse than it was. And shout out Chris Pratt. Notice we didn't really have anything bad to say because it really wasn't that big of a deal. I still don't think he was the best choice, but it was fine. He was fine for what they were doing with him.
Yeah, I am of the opinion that I would rather see voice actors playing voices in these types of movies for the most part, with few exceptions. I would love to see maybe one or two celebrities voicing a character. I loved seeing Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. I thought he was maybe the
also,
standout.
yeah, I mean, we can't discuss this without we're kind of leaving out the elephant in the room that Jack Black is Bowser.
Oh my god, fantastic.
For now until the day I die, Jack Black is Bowser. He's incredible at it. He fucking leaves nothing on the table. It's great. But I agree with you. Yeah, this would have been a great movie to hear as Charles Martinet's send off, right?
Yeah.
Because he can do it. He was just in he was in the latest Dragon Ball movie as he's the dude in the pink suit, the main villain in that movie.
Is he really?
So he can do it. People don't know that because they're not familiar with his voice that well, and he's not doing the bing bing wahoos. But
he was Parthenos or whatever the fuck that dragon's name is.
Oh yeah, Parthenos in Skyrim. Yeah, so he has the vocal range, and he could have pulled it off. And I think it would have been a good send off for him. But what do we fucking know?
They're gonna make Hollywood, a franchise of these films, so they're definitely not trying to send off the Mario character, right?
Good point. Yeah. I didn't think about that, so I guess Chris Pratt is our Mario for the foreseeable future.
I don't like Chris Pratt. I do think this was maybe his least offensive performance. I think it's a sin that he's Garfield, but there's worse people you could have put in that role, dude. Let's be glad it wasn't fucking Tom Holland or Mark.
Fair enough.
Marky
Fair
Mark.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the dude. I think he's great in some stuff. He is Star-Lord, obviously, but I just don't know how you take Star-Lord and then think, we should cast this guy in every animated movie for the next decade.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from, but whatever, man. I'll still see the fucking Mario movie, too.
So, I know you were a big fan of The Last of Us, and so I'll let you take a trip on that one in a minute here. But in a video game-adjacent media, we got Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, which, I mean, you can't really discuss Scott Pilgrim without bringing up all the video game influences in it. And I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the film, but I think that the best piece of Scott Pilgrim media was always the comic book, because it actually, you have a lot more time to go into depth with the characters and the motivations and the changes that occur. And Scott Pilgrim Takes Off finds a really happy medium where it gives you more development of the characters, but is in conversation with the movie. Without saying anything more, I will say that it is the Final Fantasy remake of Scott Pilgrim.
I know what you mean, and I've heard that sentiment as well. And for those that aren't familiar with that reference, it's a twist on what you know, is I think the safest way to put that.
Yeah.
And I've heard that too, and I look forward to watching it eventually. It's just I'm very backed up right now, as we've talked about with shows. My backlog is crazy, but it will get consumed in time. Unlike The Last of Us, and a very strange thing happened to me when I watched this show, and this same thing happened to, you know, a few of my friends that watched it. We got to the episode.
Episode 4.
For those that aren't aware, there was this episode with Nick Offerman and forgive me, I don't know the other actor's name. He's in White Lotus as like the hotel guy, and it's kind of just a standalone episode of them. It's I think Bill is his name in the game,
yeah,
and it goes through these two characters' journey, and it is one of the most powerful and affecting and beautiful pieces of media I've ever seen. And but what happened was, and again, a lot of my friends had the same thing happen. We didn't watch a single episode after that. We dropped the show because it was like I've played the games. Nothing you do is going to top what you just put out. And like, because I know what's coming to a certain extent. And like, there's no possible way. What we saw in that episode, and I'm intentionally trying not to give it away for anyone that might even be curious. You should look this up because you don't even need to know anything about the rest of the show to watch it. I think everybody should see this. It's episode 3 of the show. You don't need to see any of the episodes before it. You don't need to know anything about this world except that it takes place in a zombie apocalypse. Basically, I'm simplifying it, but a zombie apocalypse. Go on HBO, watch episode 3. You will be fucking floored by the quality of the story they put out, by the character work, by the performances from someone most people only know as Ron Swanson.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself to check this shit out. It's fucking stellar, dude. But I did drop it after that because I was like, I don't really care about the rest. You produced such a good episode of television that I'm good. I think I've got my fill of this world that you made, because I've played the games, and you just gave me something truly special and different from the games. And for what it's worth, from what I heard, they don't do that again. It's like, this is kind of a weird episode where they really took a risk, and it paid off very well. So I highly encourage everybody to check out episode 3 of The Last of Us on HBO. You won't have a fucking dry eye in the house by the time the credits roll. I promise you that. Check it out. It's great.
I'll have to go back and watch it. The Last of Us is a piece of media that I'm glad exists, but I really don't want any more of. I
agree with you there, yeah.
I really love The Last of Us, what is now known as The Last of Us Part 1. I played maybe a third of The Last of Us Part 2 before I put it down to play things that were more pleasant.
Yeah.
And then the series came out and everybody's like, oh, Craig, like, dude, it's so good, even if you've played The Last of Us. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't need that. I don't need it. I don't really want it. Like, I experienced a beautiful story. I'm really content to just let that be what it is and you know, be happy that it happened. I don't need everything to, you know, have a reimagining here, I say, after just praising Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, but, you know, let it be what it was.
Yeah, and the first 2 episodes, you're right on the money. People were raving about the first 2 episodes and how good they were. I was fine. They were fine. No, you wouldn't have been blown away. They were just a more Hollywood telling or a more cinematic telling of it. And I was like, I've seen this shit. It's fine. It was cool then. It's cool now, right?
Right.
The big tragedy that kicks off the series, yeah, it's potent, but it's like, okay, whatever. But episode 3 is something you cannot get from the games, and it's something you have not seen in the games, and it stands on its own as a testament to the power of television. And that's my rave about it. It's so fucking good. I need everybody to watch episode 3 of The Last of Us. None of the rest of the shows even needed. Just episode 3, folks.
Well,
but I give it a fucking huge thumbs up as a show because it has that episode in it. And so, you know, regardless of the rest of the season, I loved that season of television because it gave me that episode.
And it won Best Adaptation at the Game Awards, and I frankly think it's going to win the Emmy, dude. I mean, there's been a lot of good TV this year. That show was very
and I was watching when I was watching the Game Awards. Me and everyone in the fucking chat and Discord were screaming like, "Fucking bring up Nick Offerman! He should be accepting that award for you."
He should,
You know what I mean? Like it was that episode that won the award.
Yeah.
And I was, not in a dick way, but I was heckling. I was like, yeah, it's really just that one episode that won it.
It's what put it in the media, and it's kind of what put it on the map. It was a great show. It was very widely praised, but I don't think anybody would disagree that episode was the standout peak.
It's the peak of the show. Yeah, it's the peak of the show. Hopefully when they do season 2, they do an episode like that, because I'll probably check out season 2. I haven't played the game, and I don't plan to. So it'll actually be fresh for me there.
Well, hey man, we've been recording now for 3 hours, including a couple breaks in there. So why don't we wrap things up? Let's just do a quick recap, eh?
Yeah, I mean, you've got your work cut out for you editing this, and it's been a long year and a long episode to recap a long year full of great games. So take it away. Let's close this thing out, and let's move on to 2024, baby.
Yeah, I think you said it pretty well. What a year. I'm very glad that 2024 seems to slow down. My hope is that we're going to get some new Nintendo technology next year. If not, my plan is I want to get a Steam Deck OLED and maybe start cracking away at my Steam backlog and maybe pick up some PC or Game Pass exclusive releases that I haven't had the chance to play. I hope that 2024 gives the industry a break to sort of reevaluate the relation to employees, reevaluate the relation to monetization, maybe give the CEOs some opportunities for self-reflecting and say, how is money affecting the art of the industry, and what's the place of art versus gameplay versus trying to make money? So, 2023, like we kind of said, is the last year of the COVID delays sort of rippling out. I think we're going to be in a transition phase in 2024 and 2025. So let's see what that looks like on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all hopeful that 2024 will be a better year for working conditions and the industry figuring its shit out, so that these bloodbaths of like layoffs don't have to happen, and these rampant delays, and hopefully we get into more of a cadence of games coming out when they're ready, and studios not over promising things they can't deliver. Wishful fucking thinking on that part probably, but yeah, we're looking forward, right? Like, and also this year was fun. It was a fun deluge of games. I think everyone had a ball experiencing just the overwhelming amount of good content that came out. But that's not sustainable either, and it does suffocate a lot of smaller games. It doesn't give games as much time to shine. It creates a bit of a more hectic consuming experience. So I think we're all looking forward to maybe a break in 2024, a little bit more of a tame slowdown. Like you, I'm looking forward to probably picking up a Steam Deck, sooner rather than later. It seems to be a good piece of hardware. We're all begging for a new Nintendo console. And, just briefly, we usually do this, but we're going to wrap it up here. But I think if I had to just pick, next up on my list of, I'm looking forward to this, is probably Thousand Year Door would be my next big game I'm really hyped about. So bring on 2024, and, yeah.
I haven't even thought about what game I'm looking forward to next year.
Yeah,
Holy
we usually
shit.
do a most anticipated, right?
You know what? No,
So
I do know what it
just
is. It's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Oh, Rebirth.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
good
first
pick,
game was
yeah.
fucking fantastic. I'm really excited for that.
Oh,
next one.
I'm sorry. Ah, shit. I forgot this was a game that was announced. So, no, it's not Thousand Year Door, folks. It's Hades 2, of course.
Oh, yeah. Also
So,
Hades 2.
Yeah. Also Hades 2.
Also
yeah.
Hades 2. I mean, there's going to
gotta
be
be
good
Hades
eating
2.
for next year, too, right?
We're going to have great games. Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like we're not going to have great games, but hopefully it's not, 8 great games a month, because my wallet and my fucking brain and social life cannot handle that again.
Heard that. Well, to recap my picks for the year, indie game of the year goes to Blasphemous 2. My personal game of the year, Armored Core 6, The Fires of Rubicon. And I'm going to give the blunder of the year to Call of Duty as well. I just think it's pretty reprehensible what they've done with that.
Oh, yeah. So I agree with that. Blunder of the year is Call of Duty. Go back and listen to my rant again if you wish. Those are my thoughts. My game of the year, obviously Baldur's Gate 3 for me. Just a great time, great RPG. I had a really great time over the summer playing that with my friend. And then finally, we've got Sea of Stars, which was a quieter indie game of the year this year. I didn't play a lot of indie games, but it really stood out from the ones I did play as a quality product and an immense passion project for those developers. So I think it's worth checking out if you're into RPGs of that genre, kind of like Chrono Trigger and Paper Mario and stuff. And that was our years in video games.
Yeah, thank you for joining me again, Casey. It's been a great year, another great year to celebrate our friendship, and I love recording the podcast with you. It's something I genuinely look forward to it every year. Every time I'm playing a game, I love this. I think like, I can't wait to talk about this with Casey at the end of the year.
3 hours of just shooting the shit about games is a dream, really, and I'm glad we make such a good duo too, because we rarely are unanimous on the games we like, which creates for probably good listening. It'd be pretty boring if we both just came on and were had the same exact fucking thoughts. So,
truly.
Yeah, it's been a delight as always. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to doing this again. And I was thinking too, not to get too fucking crazy and lay out like a fucking Marvel roadmap, but it would be interesting. We talk so much about how games could have been Game of the Years in other years and stuff. And I think it'd be interesting for a bigger episode one day to maybe look back and compete some of these Game of the Years and have a bracket almost and see what really was the best game we played in the last 5 years or the last 10 years. But that's to come later. We've got plenty in these fucking 3 hours you now have to edit. So
yeah, no
thank
kidding.
you very much. Thank you everyone who's listening. It's awesome. We do this for fun, but it's awesome to know that some people check it out and give a shit what we have to say. So,
yeah, and we'll keep doing it. I mean, I'm not really doing this for the engagement more so. I just like having a chat with my guy with a little bit of structure to it. So, for those of you who do choose
with that said,
listen,
like and subscribe and share and fucking post on TikTok and clip it and fucking market it. Nah, I'm kidding.
Well, for those of you who do choose to listen, thank you very much for the past 3 or so hours. I'm Craig Kober.
And I've been Casey Kozlowski.
And as always, don't forget to save.